Everyone just got so quiet.
Must be time.
I'm going to go ahead and call this July 1st, 2024 meeting of the Whitefish City Council to order. Thanks everyone for coming this evening. We're also hosting some folks online via WebEx, so welcome to them as well. We'll start with our Pledge of Allegiance, and I would ask Fitzy, if you don't mind leading us tonight in our pledge. Thanks, Fitzy. We'll move on to communications from the public. We do have 2 public hearings advertised for this hearing, which I assume is why most of you are here, so please wait until I call those individual hearings under agenda item 6. But anything you'd like to share with the council, now would be your opportunity. Name and address for the record, please. Nathan.
Hello, Nathan Dugan, 937 Kalispell Avenue, president of Shelter WF. And so in the setting of our ongoing growth policy update, I'm speaking today about an opportunity to create meaningful change with housing affordability through unique and innovative design solutions. Last week, it was announced that Shelter WF was one of 343 nationwide recipients of an AARP Community Challenge Grant. This grant's highly selective. There were more than 3,300 applicants, and it aims to make tangible improvements in communities that jumpstart long-term change. It's part of AARP's nationwide Livable Communities Initiative, which supports the efforts of cities, towns, and neighborhoods and rural areas to be great places to live for people of all ages. And so specifically, our grant was awarded to host a design competition to give professionals an opportunity to create unique and innovative designs to solve the affordable housing crisis that exists not only here in Whitefish, but throughout the state of Montana. Our objective is to focus on designs that are considered to be missing middle housing, that is, homes that exist between a single detached home and a large apartment complex. Additionally, the design should be accessible to ensure that they can be lived in by older adults safely, either now or in the future, and should incorporate features that increase community and potential interactions between neighbors. So we've got some sweet prizes for this. Our grand prizes are $2,500. We have an additional $1,000 Community Choice Awards on top of that. We're hosting 2 separate competitions, and people that are interested, professionals that are interested in participating, the same individuals or teams could enter and win each competition. So there's a lot of money potentially on the line here for the winners. The first competition consists of designs that adhere to the current zoning standards of a given zoning district that we will dictate to the participants. And the second competition consists of the development of an entire neighborhood, ignoring any existing zoning barriers, which really allows us to kind of see what might be possible. So these competitions will generate home designs that are affordable, accessible, and community-oriented while expanding our collective view of what might be possible in the near future. As we move through updates of local growth policies, not only here, but kind of around the state, these tangible examples will provide excellent guidance to our communities when zoning maps are eventually adjusted to meet individual community housing needs. So interested professionals, we're thinking architects, other people that design these sort of thing on a regular basis, can visit www.shelterwf.org for more information and to express their interest in participating. We can also be reached directly via email at info@shelterwf.org. We look forward to seeing the submissions and challenge professionals to be as innovative as possible with those submissions so we can get some stuff that we've never seen before and maybe kind of move the ball forward pretty quickly on affordable housing here in town. Thanks.
Thanks, Nathan. Bruce.
Good evening, Bruce Booty, landscape architect. I'm here to talk about item 8B, 95 Carroll Whitefish Yards. It's been a kind of a long project. I think we first started talking about this in 2014 with the 93 West growth policy. And out of that came a real partnership between the city of Whitefish and a bunch of other people to work to get MDT to buy into the whole idea of the upgrade and how that would be managed. Right now, we're still in the position of working with the city to fulfill all the benefits of Whitefish Yards. And there are a number of them. And I don't think I've ever been involved with another project that has this kind of benefit, but also this kind of in-depth need for a true partnership. So, you know, to the north, we've got the connection under BNSF trestle and across BNSF land to get to the connection with Sky Park Bridge. On the south, we have the connection to 95 or to Caro Avenue. And on the east, we have, of course, the connection to the BNSF loop via a new bridge across the river. And when we first started talking about this in 2014 and 2016, and then in 2018, when the first plans were submitted, we were going, there's a lot to manage here. And we really needed the logistical and financial partnership with the city. And that is still, we hope, moving forward. And that's what I'm here tonight, just to speak very briefly and say that we hope that is the case. And we're trying to do everything to make sure from the developer's perspective, from Casey's perspective, that we're doing the right things and that we can all get together and make this work. So I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bruce.
Good evening. DC Haas, 103 Mallard Drive in Kalispell. I'm here representing the Whitefish Fire Service area, and I spoke to some of you at a work session a few months ago. I think we're at a place where we can sign an amendment here shortly for the purchase of a new fire engine for $700,000, and I'd like to thank everyone's effort with that, and especially the city manager for pushing that forward. I believe that's a win-win. I also want to mention that next Thursday, there's a hearing with the county commissioners to approve a rate increase for the fire service area, the 80 square miles surrounding the city. We don't have total support of the county commissioners. Only two have supported this even go into hearing, and we're asking from a $144 annual rate to $180 per house, which is still woefully behind where we should be for a fire entity in this area. So if you have friends or family that live in the fire service area, I'd encourage you to discuss the situation that we do need their support to ask the commissioners either by email or at the hearing to support this rate increase, so that helps us help you, help this partnership that we work more effectively together. So again, thank you for supporting that amendment to the interlocal. I'm looking forward to continuing working with you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, DC, and thanks for all your work as well.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Good evening, Julie Tickle, 140 Burley Bear Trail in Whitefish, representing Dream Adaptive Recreation, also commenting on what Bruce just mentioned, 8B, and basically mirror what he said. At Dream Adaptive, we fully support a connected community with multimodal transportation options, and this project and seeing it to completion with a great partnership from all parties is really important for people with disabilities, as well as all other community members that need to walk and bike as a means of transportation. So thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Fitzy.
Hello, my name's Mike Fitzgerald, and I'm from 412 Luffer, Whitefish. I'm here to just say that this project that's going out on the yard. It's fantastic. We're getting a quarter of a mile of river frontage with bike trail. And also it's going to connect two bridges. If we get the other bridge in, it's going to be an incredible loop for the locals. And I just think that this is a giant opportunity for the city of Whitefish to take a giant step forward, because this is going to be a great project. And I've been involved in all the bike trails pretty much, especially along the river. And this is a win-win situation. And I hope the city gets behind it and we move on it as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Dakota.
Dakota Whitman, 102 Dakota Avenue. Just here to give a brief comment about the unfortunate reality that the county commissioners have denied funding for mountain climber. And as we all know, in Whitefish, public transportation is a big need and a big goal for this city. And I would just here to leave a comment that I think this is an opportunity for Whitefish to really lead the way and be an example and provide funding to show the rest of the county that public transportation here is possible. And I think that Whitefish can be a big forward-thinking example in helping achieve that goal. Thank you.
Thanks, Dakota.
Rachel Schmidt, 675 Woodside Lane, Whitefish. Mirroring the yards comments, I actually am relating my son's information. My son found out that there was a bridge going in there, and he asked me a few months ago, and he was so excited about this bridge because he knows these trails like the back of his hand. He fishes for pike every spring on the river, so he knows where he can get to, where he can't get to, and where it's really hard for him to cross. I told him that there was comment coming today, and he was like, I'm way too scared to come and talk to all these people. But anyway, just wanted to relate to you, like, even the kids in our community are really noticing, like, oh my gosh, there's a bridge, there's more trails, there's more system to go and access. And so I just am really stoked to see what you guys come up with and how we can push this forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Rachel. Further public comment this evening? Michelle, anyone online wishing to provide public comment? I'll go ahead and close the public. Sorry about that.
Joe Courtney, 535 Colorado Avenue, Whitefish. I got a lot I could comment on, but I think I'm just on the airport hangar.
That's advertised for a public hearing, so if you have comments, you'll have to wait until we call that hearing. Joe, please.
Communications from the public says
It's
set aside
advertised
this time to comment on items that are either on the agenda, okay, which would apply to talking about it, right?
No, you'd have to wait until I call that public hearing, since it's a quasi-judicial matter.
Okay, well, I won't talk about that then. All I will talk about is just that 2 days ago, 2 twin planes were flying over about 400 feet above the town and municipality. Minimum 500 feet should be the distance, and for municipality, I should actually be 1,000 feet above town. And I haven't seen anything or read anything where the city has done anything to bring up any ordinances or any restrictions on maintaining the height of which the planes are flying over town, and any way to verify that they are flying too low. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Further public comment? Not seeing any. Any volunteer board reports from the audience? How about the council? Giuseppe?
Just to comment to the fact that we talked at the Montana North Montana Economic Development Board about the questions that were raised about economic incentives to businesses coming to town, and the chair, the executive director, will provide some information in the upcoming days.
Great. Thanks, Giuseppe. Any other board reports? Not seeing any, we'll move on to our consent agenda. You have the June 17th special and regular meetings enclosed with your packet. Frank?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I will second it.
Seconded by Giuseppe. Further discussion?
Yeah, just one
Please.
point. What color is the tractor? '95. It's a good tractor. Okay, disregard the question. Let's vote.
She does not know. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign. The motion does carry unanimously, which brings us to our first public hearing of the evening, and that will be item 6A, consideration of a request from Billy McKinney on behalf of the state of Montana, Department of Transportation for a conditional use permit to expand the Whitefish Airport with an airplane hangar, and the property is located at 1716 East 2nd Street, and this will be WCUP 24-05. Nelson.
Good evening. So, like you said, the proposed property is at the existing Whitefish Airport at 1761 East 2nd Street. This went before the Community Development Board Thursday, May 17th, and then again on June 20th. I'll give my report and then I'll summarize what happened at the second meeting and after. And so they are requesting a conditional use permit to expand the existing airport use by building an airplane hangar. The proposed hangar is 5,400 square feet, 400 of which is a proposed e-bike rental for pilots that land. The e-bike rental would be an accessory use to the airport and not be rented to the public. The airport runway, that property is in the county, but there is approximately that 4 acres that is in the city limits. Currently, the property has 2 storage sheds and a roofed airport sign. The owner is the Montana Department of Transportation. It's their property. Again, it's 4.214 acres. It is zoned Whitefish agricultural. To the north is the county SAG 10 zoning. To the west and south is the public parks, the WAG Dog Park. And to the east, again, is more county SAG 10 zoning. It's zone WA. Utilities are available. Sewer is not, at the site, but it would be easy to connect to. It is close by. So for public comments, a notice was mailed to adjacent owners. Advisory agency notice was sent out. A notice in the paper was all put in May 1st. I've had 10 letters of public comment, 2 for the proposed project, 8 opposed. At the time of today, I received 3 more today. So as far as the review and finding of fact, as far as growth policy compliance, the proposed use complies with the growth policy designation of rule because the property has been developed in accordance with existing agricultural district zoning. As far as compliance with regulations, the setbacks, the lot is a flag lot. It's accessed off of East 2nd Street. So that road you use to get into the dog park, that is state property. The city has an easement to use to get to the dog park there. The height limit is 35 feet in the WA zone. The proposed building is 23 feet tall. Lot coverage for the WA zone for properties larger than 2 acres is 10%. The proposed project would increase the lot coverage to 3.29%. So finding 2 is the project complies with the zoning regulations because all the zoning standards are being met or will be met with conditions of approval. And this, again, will be reviewed at time of building permit. As far as site suitability, the access road used is shared with, the city shares it for the WAG Dog Park. All access requirements are being met with the existing approach. The project, there's no environmental constraints as far as the floodplain or no other environmental constraints. So the project is suitable for the site because there is adequate usable land area. The proposed access will meet emergency standards or there are no environmental constraints. As far as the quality and functionality, so for parking, the zoning, the regulations do not provide minimum parking standards for airport uses. A condition to require 4 parking spaces has been added to address concerns from the public at the Community Development Board meetings. The hangar would allow for approximately 4 planes to be stored, hence the 4 spaces that we are conditioning. Landscaping will be reviewed at time of building permit to meet current standards. Any new utilities will be underground. As far as electricity, natural gas. So the applicant has effectively dealt with the site design issues because they are providing the required amount of parking spaces. Traffic circulation will remain unchanged. And the property will comply with current landscaping requirements. As far as availability and adequacy of public facilities and services, again, it is able to be served by water and sewer. Sewer is not at the site yet, but could be extended. The project is not asking to connect to water or sewer at this time. The fire department serves the site, and response times and access are good, and proposed use is not expected to have significant impacts upon fire service. So public services and facilities are adequate and available because municipal water and sewer serve the project, or able to. Response times for police and fire are not anticipated to be affected, and property has adequate access off public roads. As far as neighborhood and community impact, no traffic impact study is required at the time for the proposed use. No impacts are anticipated beyond what would be expected from a typical local airport use. Hangars themselves do not make any noise. As far as dust, smoke, glare, and heat, all outdoor lighting is required to be dark sky compliant. The proposed hours of operation are 24 hours a day. So the proposed development is not anticipated to have a negative neighborhood impact, as noise, dust, smoke, odor, or other environmental nuisances are not expected. All outdoor lighting must meet city standards, and existing roads are anticipated to handle any additional traffic. As far as neighborhood and community compatibility, the proposed building is 23 feet tall and is 60 by 90 feet in size. The building must meet architectural review standards, and any future changes require staff approval. So the project is compatible with the neighborhood and community because the proposed building will need to meet the architectural review standards. Any future exterior changes require approval by staff. The existing neighborhood is a mixture of commercial and residential uses, including a dog park, the railroad. There are other airport hangars on private property nearby. So staff is recommending approval. The project, as far as conditions of approval go, must be in compliance with the site plan submitted. All lighting must be dark sky compliant. So any area impacted or disturbed within the boundaries of the Parks and Recreation Department's easement area must be returned to its original condition. No work may take place on city property outside of the easement area. 4 standard parking spaces must be provided for the airport use located on airport property. The conditional use permit, again, would be valid for 18 months and shall terminate unless commencement of an authorized activity has begun. Now, so the second meeting at the Community Development Board, the board had some questions that were answered by MDT. To provide a quick summary of those answers to those questions, the Aviation Division provided the lease, which I included in the packet, giving information on the lease process. The agreement was worked out with the MDT legal department at a first come, first served basis. Only one hangar lease is planned by MDT to keep the tie downs and area for maneuverability. There's no direct benefit to MDT, and they're supportive of the development. The lease is 40 years long. And so at the June 20th Community Development Board meeting, the Community Development Board unanimously voted to recommend denial of the conditional use permit. 7 members of the public made comment at the time. 4 were against the proposal, and 3 were in favor of the airplane hangar. And since the Community Development Board recommended denial, a couple of the findings of fact presented in the transmittal letter have been changed by staff to reflect their concerns and comments. Finding 1 being that the proposed use does not comply with the growth policy as future land use goal 4, preserve and protect scenic vistas and view sheds, is not met as the proposed hangar would block a scenic vista and view shed. And then finding 6, the proposed development is anticipated to have a negative neighborhood impact on noise, dust, smoke, odor, or other environmental nuisances as they are expected with the expansion of an airport. Staff is still recommending approval of the conditional use permit, but the Community Development Board did recommend unanimously to deny the permit.
Thanks, Nelson. Any questions for Nelson on his staff report? Ben.
So just to make sure I understand the lay of the land here, so the land is owned by MDT, both the runway and the proposed hangar location?
Correct.
However, only part of that is under city jurisdiction?
Yes, just the 4 acres where the proposed hangar is located. So it's at the very end of the runway, which is the 4 acres, which is by the dog park. That's the area we are talking about that is in city limits and is zone WA.
Okay, But the city has no control over the broader growth of the airport, so to speak. It's just this particular segment of it.
Correct. The runway is in the county, and so therefore we would have no control over that section of the property.
Okay. And just curious, what is the long-term vision of this airport? I mean, what is it intended to be in the long run? Are we intending to grow the airport, not grow the airport? What's the philosophy here?
Yeah, so the comment I got from MDT stated that they only are planning for this one airport hangar, and to keep I believe there's 6 tie downs just to the east of the proposed hangar. And those tie downs are for pilots to go and essentially park their plane. Frankly, there's not a lot of space to put other structures on the site. So from MDT, they just essentially said that only one hangar is planned to be allowed at this time.
And why is this airport in this location as opposed to any other location in the valley? Just curious.
So this is just historically has been the airport, and I'm not 100% sure on the history, but I know it's existed for a long time.
The original airstrip was hole 1 on the north course.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
So it was moved about 60, 70 years ago to the current location.
Okay.
Giuseppe.
And Nelson, you, from the finding of fact that the staff presented to the finding of fact that we see presented to us, am I correct that 2 were changed? And finding number 2 and finding number, the one about the noise, I forget which number. So I wanted to understand finding number 2. It says that, actually finding number 1, I apologize. The staff said the proposed use does comply with the growth policy because it complies with the use of rural area versus the Community Development Board unanimously focused on the fact that one of the goals of the growth policy is preserve and protect scenic vistas and view sheds. So how is this defined? Where are the vistas defined?
So it's in the growth policy under the future land use goal. They're not specifically defined in the growth policy. It says preserve and protect scenic vistas, views, and view sheds. But after, there's a note in parentheses that states that no work has been done to establish what these are, and there's been no definition as to what that means.
So was that the key reason why the Community Development Board unanimously denied that?
That was a talking point at the Community Development Board meeting. So I kind of summarized what their points were and articulated that through findings 1 and 6.
Thank you. Then I have another question. Say the developer decides to stick to the use by right. Could they build a barn that is 35 foot high and as big as this hangar?
So yeah, agriculture is a use by right in their WA zoning. So for example, if this was a farm, they could build a 35-foot tall barn without a conditional use permit.
So how do you respect the vistas in that case?
So it would not be under that level of review and analysis because it would not be a conditional use permit. So building permits, that would just be a building permit, and those are not reviewed by the City Council or Community Development Board.
Thank you. And about finding 6, the proposed development is anticipated to have a negative neighborhood impact as noise, dust, smoke, odor, and other environmental nuisances are expected with the expansion of an airport. So right now, the airport has tie downs. Transients can fly in and out. It's a public airport. Helicopters can fly in and out. They can fly into any helipad. But the Community Development Board determined that by putting a hangar there, the noise, odor would be increasing.
Yes, there was concerns over noise through the hangar use. That was discussed by the public and echoed by the Community Development Board.
Further questions from council? Ben?
Just one more, sorry. Angie, I'm sorry not to put you on the spot, but could you opine on your thoughts on the findings of fact that came from the planning board? Do you feel they're sufficiently written? Yes, no? Don't ask?
I would suggest if you guys are going to deny this, that you maybe turn it back to staff to work on some findings.
Steve?
Nelson, just remind me, on the drawing there, it shows that there are some trees. There aren't any trees currently at the site. Are they required to do a landscaping plan?
Yes, so any use that basically a multifamily or commercial is required to submit a landscaping plan and meet the current landscaping standards. So yes, they would be subject to our landscaping regulations.
Okay, thank you.
Rebecca?
So I was under the impression that we had a helicopter ordinance that prohibits helicopters from landing
On private land.
only on private land. So we could have helicopters landing out there as well, Nelson?
So
We already do.
We do? Okay. Thank you.
Further questions? Not seeing any. We did advertise for a public hearing on item 6A of our agenda. I would invite the applicant or applicant's representative to share any comments he or she may have to the council first, and then I'll move to public comment. Just in terms of public comment, just so those in attendance are aware, we do have both public hearing meeting minutes included in our packet, and those have been adopted as part of the formal public record, but certainly you're free to address the council, and we do have slightly lengthy agenda. If you could try to limit your comments to 3 minutes, that would be appreciated. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Christine Blyle, 617 Colorado Avenue in Whitefish, and I'm the architect for Mr. McKinney on this hangar. And so never in my 30 years of doing this did I anticipate this much opposition to what I think of as an acceptable use for an acceptable site. So it's taken both Billy and myself some time to kind of backtrack a little bit and recalibrate. I think some of the opposition comes from what's being called the view shed or the view corridor. But in reviewing the site and in reviewing the information that I think has been brought here in opposition, I think some of it's misleading. And for me, it seems like the view shed or the view corridor is only obstructed in a pretty narrow angle of view. It's really from maybe the exit of the dog park and behind, or if you're standing right in front of the hangar or from the fence. But otherwise, on the other 30 some acres that the armory, the dog park, the pump track, the ball pitch, they all, still have pretty clear views of both the Whitefish Range, the ski hill, into Bedrock Canyon. So I think, just in reviewing some of the comments in the past here, I don't really see how that's that much affected. Secondly, I think there's been some comments about fear of additional noise or smoke, fumes. Again, this is already a functioning airport. So planes and helicopters already do take off and land here. They get tied down here. Adding a hangar that has space for 4 planes, and then a rental area for bicycles to take into town. I'm not really seeing how there's an increase in both air traffic, noise, smoke, fumes than what is already happening at the airport. I think there's already a permitted use, it's a commercial use for the skydivers that use the airport already, at least in the past years. That adds considerable noise and activity at the airport. And so I'm not really, I guess I never anticipated that type of opposition when I'm not really seeing where that's going to increase it. And then I think also, I mean, all of the uses around here are public, and this airport is also a public municipal airport. So it's going to be used by the general public, and it already is used by the general public. So I think there's been some concern about public-private interface. You know, municipal airports around the state of Montana already have hangars on them that are leased. I don't view it as anything really different than the City of Whitefish City Hall building that has leased space to yoga studios in it. You know, I think there's already a partnership or a lease agreement that you guys have with such entities that the Department of Transportation would have with somebody like Mr. McKinney for an airplane hangar. So, you know, I think some of the comments have been maybe a little unfounded or maybe a little bit of just kind of questionable just in terms of trying to keep something out of their backyard. Again, I just encourage you to consider that this is a, you know, a 23-foot tall airplane hangar. That Whitefish Airport sign that is already at the airport there, that's 15 feet tall. So this is not that many feet taller than that existing Whitefish Airport sign. Now I get it that the building is much larger, but it's not any larger than some of the hangars that are on private property adjacent to this. So, you know, again, the state of Montana is only proposing one hangar. It's not dissimilar than other airports in the state of Montana. And of course, it's a lease, and so that lease could always be reviewed between Mr. McKinney and the state, and at any point. So anybody have any questions for me? And I'm a daily dog park user. Some of the people that have been the most vocal have been dog park users, and we're supposed to be there playing with our dogs, not really, you know, doing much other things. So I've studied the view corridor pretty thoroughly. It's my job too, and I don't really see how it obstructs it.
Thanks, Christine. Any questions for Christine? Steve?
My question's not necessarily about the hangar, but the pilot's lounge.
Mm-hmm.
When I hear the word lounge, I think bathroom, and currently there's nothing proposed for a bathroom on the site.
Correct.
And if people are going to be hanging out there, it seems like, and we're improving the property, it seems like there should be a bathroom there. And I think I read in the comments that you wouldn't be opposed to that, that change. That's really that's my big concern.
Currently, there isn't a restroom facility there. It's over at, closer to Armory Park, which is shared by the dog park, the pump track, the ball pitch, the skateboard half pipes. So we weren't really seeing that the airplane hangar, which really isn't a lounge, there's no beds, there's no couches, anything like that. There might be a vending machine for snacks. And a way to check out bicycles and leave, or maybe you might leave an overnight pack or something in there. But it's not, I don't think of it as the lounge like at the at the GPIA. It's not quite a lounge like that. So, you know, but at the same time, I think Mr. McKinney, once reviewing with Public Works, that sewer water isn't as far from this site as previously thought, that it's not out of our purview to include that if that would be a condition of approval for this project, that I could see a stall being added.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Further questions? Not seeing any. Anyone else from your team willing to or wishing to provide comments?
I don't think so.
Thanks, Christine. With that said, I will take public comment. Very few people signed up, but please, that doesn't preclude you from speaking. And name and address for the record, please. Joe, I see your name if you want to start. Thanks.
Joe Courtney, 535 Colorado Avenue, Whitefish. Like I said a couple of days ago, a couple of planes flying together, about 400 feet above town, and I still don't hear anything about the restriction on municipalities. It should be 1,000 feet actually over municipality, 500 feet over other areas that that airplanes can fly over, and a lot of them aren't adhering to that, so that's kind of a bothers me. And of course, in the last few years, commercial airlines have been using Whitefish as their route too, so that's even more noise that's coming into play. The hangar itself, situated off on the side, and I said this before, that there was a plane that flipped over there last year off the end of the runway, and you start putting hangars and other things in close to the runway on either side, that can be very dangerous to have that go on. If this is moving towards approval, which the other board denied with the city council, it really needs to be stated more, I believe, on the height of these planes flying over town. It's just safer for everybody and less noise, and I guess that's my biggest thing, other than we open one building in the airport, and there'll be another one and another one and another one after that, I'm pretty sure. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe. John?
Good evening. My name is John Wilson. I live at 1725 East 2nd Street. What's on my mind are impacts, and there's a real some different thoughts on this, but I think it's a matter of perspective. And if you live in the flight path like I do, I am concerned about impacts. To a certain degree, I don't know how narrowly, how much you're constrained about the narrow language in a conditional use permit. It's not that the building itself is going to hurt me at my house, but I really believe, and I think we've all seen it happen in this town, things are changing. People have the means to change things, so they do. And you know, we have a nice pastoral grass airport now that fits Whitefish. It's kind of self-governing too. If we start, if it starts being enhanced, that's just more attention to it. And I don't know how well that falls under a conditional use permit, but the CUP, as far as I can understand after talking with Nelson, is the only control the city will have. But I'm concerned about change, and it's been changing over the last few years, a little faster since the subdivision happened there, but just the other day, what Joe was talking about, we had a couple of very loud planes. It was like being in, next to a NASCAR racetrack. They whoa, whoa. And, think about that for yourselves if you saw things like that. It's not the hangar itself, but it's the more people coming, the kind of behavior that they have with their, I'm not saying it's wrong, but I think it's inappropriate. I had a couple of other thoughts. Well, I used to. Oh, well. And also another point that Margie and I talk about this quite a bit, but in terms of compatibility, the city's done a great job with Armory Park, the dog park, all the improvements over there where the new playground is, the bicycle park, and I really think that this hangar and enhancing the airport is a drawback to all that. So, thank you.
Thanks, John. Kate?
My name is Kate McMahon. I live at 151 Wedgewood Drive. I live in one of the houses that's probably closest to the hangar, directly across from the dog park. So I'm not just a user of the dog park, I'm actually a resident of the neighborhood. I am going to talk about visual impact. I did submit a letter. I did do some visual simulations, so I'm going to hand those out. I do want to address the growth policy question. When staff made the finding that this was compatible with the growth policy, they based it on the land use map. The zoning regulations specifically say, when it talks about growth policy compliance, that the proposal conforms to the applicable goals and policies of the Whitefish City Council. So it is very important to consider the goals and policies. And visual impact is one of the goals and policies there. While it is not as significant or pronounced if you're farther away from the road or whatever, when you're down at the dog park, you're right next to the airport. And I do go down there pretty much on a daily basis and walk. And I have seen people pull into that parking lot where the hangar is going to be, set up tripods so that they can get photos of the sunrise, of the alpenglow, of rainbows. They get that panoramic view. So even though this may only obstruct a portion of the view that you get, what they're looking for is that panoramic view. Although the visual impact wasn't specifically defined in the growth policy, I think you can define it by when you have professionals go down there and take it. I think you can define it when New York Times, USA Today, Oprah Magazine, and other places have said this is the #1 or #2 or #3 dog park in the country because of the views. That defines it. I was at the council work session about a month ago talking about the Sustainable Tourism Management Plan. I worked on both the original plan as well as the update as a consultant. And when we did our public meetings, and we had 700 people 5 years ago respond to the survey, almost 1,000 people respond to the survey there. The #1 concern was affordable housing. The #2 concern was community character. And when we did that original plan, the Sustainable Tourism Management Committee, and Andy, you were on that, you'll remember that one of the key pillars was community character. And people felt that piece by piece, little by little, developments are taking away from that character. And I read through every single comment, and we defined in that original plan what community character meant. And we defined the elements that we were hearing. And visual impact was one of those developments. People thought that this was very important. This is a public place that people come to, that visitors come to, that people who are just driving by, not using the dog park, hop out of their car to take pictures of. So this is a very important vista and scenic place in the community that's very important to the character. I also want to point out that I worked on a expert report for the, as part of my consulting practice. I'm a city planner for the bridge in Big Fork that was reported to, went to the Montana Supreme Court and was actually told to remove it. And if you read that opinion from the Montana Supreme Court, it said one of the reasons that it failed to meet the criteria was because the county did not consider visual impact. This came from the Montana Supreme Court. So visual impact is in the goals and policies. It's been upheld as a criteria by the Montana Supreme Court to be considered. The visual impact at the dog park is very real. It's a part of the community. In regards to finding #6, the proposed development is anticipated to have a negative impact. And the applicants have brought up that it's already an airport, there's already planes flying in and out, and that is true. But what is not there is a hangar. Just this past weekend, one of the hangars that was a private hangar that's built, that's about a half mile from my house, had a party. And they were playing music late into the night. And you can hear that from our house. It's summertime, we have the windows open. That's a half mile away. This hangar will be less than that from my house. So even though the planes might not be flying 24/7, people can open the door, they can be playing their music there. Even if it's not the applicant's intent to do that, this is a 40-year lease, and I have seen this as a planner where the applicant says, I have no intent of doing this, but then the lease turns over, something happens and they don't have it anymore. The next person came in, they're not required, they have no, don't maybe have that same community ethic. So we've already experienced noise from hangars being built that are a half mile away. This one's going to be even closer to the neighborhood. So there's a very real potential impact to the neighborhood from noise, not just from the planes flying, but just from the hangar itself. And I will just substantiate the comments about the twin planes that were doing maneuvers over the airport over the weekend. It wasn't safe. It was very loud. And when you have a place where you can store the planes, it's going to be more convenient for people to do that. So anyway, I'd like to thank the City Council for considering these comments, and thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, Kate.
Hello, my name is Greg Balazza, 150 Dodger Lane. I just want to echo some of the things Kate said. I live across the street. I probably live the most across the street from everyone at 150 Dodger. This is what I would be looking at every day. But I'm also a dog park user. I go there 3 times a day. And I just wanted to say that the Armory Complex is a very special place. It's easy for us to take for granted what we have in Whitefish. And this park is, it's a beautiful vista. It's a beautiful place. We should not take it for granted. I went and just did some looking around, and I looked at Google reviews, just out of curiosity. There are 436 reviews. It's a 4.9 out of 5-star rated park, the dog park. And what really struck me about these reviews is how review after review had the picture taken in the review of the view we're talking about. Just over and over, people were posting this picture, both locals and out-of-towners. I have had people stop in front of my driveway and park their car, get out of the car, and take pictures of the view of Bad Rock Canyon. You know, when I think about where Whitefish is growing, and I'll just say I love Whitefish. I've been here 7 years now. The growth policy is really the thing that I think will keep us going in the right direction, and that's the tool we have to help steer Whitefish in the direction we need to go. I've been at both community development boards, and I wanted to thank them for asking a lot of questions and really digging deep into this. I was very excited to have them have a unanimous finding from that, because we did talk about the subject great length. And I just wanted to cover a couple other things. You know, the sign has come up a couple times about it being 15 foot tall. And that is a good example of something that was built very correctly. It's not a wall. If you've ever been to the Armory Park, it's 2 posts. It's open. You can see through it. The view is not obstructed. It was very tastefully done. So it's a little bit apples and oranges to talk about the sign and this, which would be an obstruction. In terms of, like, you know, hangars at an airport, you know, I totally get why the applicant will want this, but I'll just say that it's not the presence of a hangar for me primarily. It's that the hangar is being built right where the parking lot, where our newly paved loop trail is. It's right in the middle of things where people really enjoy the entrance of this park. And that's something I just wanted to say. I have concerns as a homeowner right next to the park. When helicopters are doing their practice landings, I cannot use my property outside. It's just a no-go. It is deafening at 150 Dodger Lane across the street. I've had to come inside for that. This hangar does not directly go to that, but I have concerns about the way this lease is written, in that particular uses in the future, since this is a commercial lease, could go any direction. Anyway, I just wanted to say, let's not take our parks for granted. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg. Bob, you're up. Anyone else wishing to provide comment? After you, Bob.
Okay. Bob Horn, also 151 Wedgewood Lane in Whitefish. And before I launch into my prepared remarks, I'd like to maybe address the question that Councilman Davis rose earlier. I submitted a letter with several issues, questions of social, several issues, details on this project. They had to do with the bathroom. They had to do with no visual impact study, okay, on a project like this. One of them was the very question that Ben asked, and that is, what's next? We know from experience that anytime we improve a facility, the use goes up, however little, okay? So my question was, what's next? Fuel dispensing? Pilot activated runway? What else is out there that can be justified because, oh, we already have a hangar? So I asked the same question, Ben, and got no answer. I always thought that these airports had to have a master plan. When I did the growth policy for Anaconda Deer Lodge County, they had a master plan for Bowman Field. I found no master plan for this airport, and when I checked the MCA, I couldn't find the requirement in there. So I don't know where I got that idea, but as far as I know, There's no master plan for this airport. Okay, there's a section in the staff report called Growth Policy Compliance, and it said the property has a rural growth policy designation. This is consistent with the WA zoning on the property. Airports are a conditional use in the WA zone, and thus it complies with the growth policy. Now, this is a standard part of the staff report to indicate that the proposed use is either permitted or conditional in the existing zone and is therefore consistent with the growth policy. I get that. However, the growth policy is a broad body of public policy that cuts across and includes all components of community building, and there's a lot more to the growth policy that doesn't appear to have been considered. As has already been pointed out, there's a strong statement in the growth policy about preserving scenic vistas. There's also considerable narrative and analyses about community character and quality. Therefore, I can't believe that blocking or partially obscuring an iconic vista from a community gathering place, which it is, and which Kate described it better than I could, which the Wag Dog Park has become, is any way consistent with the growth policy. The growth policy was prepared over a period of 2.5 years, as you all know, with extensive community involvement in order to give us this type of guidance on a project-by-project basis. This brings us around to the benefit test to which the Community Development Board applied to this matter. If the growth policy advises us that some people in the community will experience irreparable harm from the hangar while others will benefit, the question becomes who will be harmed and who will benefit. After taking extensive public testimony, the board determined that all dog park patrons, thousands of them, whether residents or visitors, are potentially harmed by the proposed hangar, which will, in whole or in part, block an iconic view from the dog park to the east into Glacier National Park, and the only benefit will accrue to a few private pilots. The board concluded that the harm clearly outweighed any benefit, and I hope and trust that the council will reach the same conclusion. Thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you, Bob.
Good evening. I'm Henry Elson. I live at 325 Haugen Heights Road. I don't live near this area, but I do oppose the conditional use permit. It just seems like the wrong facility in the wrong place, and it detracts from all of those wonderful amenities that are in that area. I also agree with some of the other speakers who can see that a hangar will lead to other uses of that airport, and this problem will just compound itself. So that is my comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Henry.
Good evening. I'm Mick Holmes. I live at 170 Johns Way, just outside city limits, but right across the road from the airport, just south side of Armory. I agree with every comment that you've heard here tonight on the negative side. I would oppose. I hope you would oppose the building. The noise, it is a serious factor. It has increased steadily over the last 5 years to the point where you can't talk outside a good portion of the day when these things are going up and down. The helicopters, the planes. Some of the planes are fine. They don't have a lot of noise, but there are a few, as was mentioned on Friday night last week, that are extremely loud. You can't have a normal conversation. I live a quarter mile away from the runway, and you got to stop all conversation, not just in the yard, but when I have my windows open and I work from home, I'm on the phone a lot. I have to stop my phone call, my business phone calls during the day until the planes pass or till the helicopters pass, because it has gotten so loud. So the hangar itself isn't going to cause the noise, but the hangar brings more airplanes. More airplanes means more noise, more congestion, more safety issues. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Holmes.
Hi, Sue Robinson, 412 Hazel Place. I just want to say I support the opposition, and I have no further comments.
Thank you, Sue.
Marjorie Wilson, 1725 2nd Street. I support
I
the
wonder if they
opposition.
realize that if they don't do it at the airport, people are going to put in their own private helipads and whatever.
What are you talking about?
They're
Sorry for the interruption, Margie. I don't know what happened.
Where'd that come from? I just, in addition to opposing, would like to commend the city for what they've done to Armory Park over the last 15 years. It's awesome. All of the facilities they continue to provide are great. This is not one of those. This is going to be a permanent eyesore. Thank you.
Thanks, Marjorie.
Hi, I've never spoken in front of you guys before, so I'm a little nervous, but my name is Heather Nelson. I live at 130 Birch Drive. I'm against it, but a lot of the opposing opinions, I kind of agree with all those, but just to keep it short and sweet, I don't feel like the hangar actually benefits the community enough. Like, I understand there's an airport and then hangars come with that, but it's my understanding that the builder, the applicant, is keeping 2 of the spots for their own planes and only 2 are actually rented out. So it seems like, how does this even benefit the community? Like, why are we going through this? Seems like there's too many negatives, which we've heard them all. And how does it benefit just for 2 planes to come in and have e-bikes? Just doesn't really seem like a good use of the land there. Maybe we could come up with something better. That's my opinion. Okay.
Thanks, Heather.
Linda Hersom, 135 Birch Drive. I just wanted to go on record with saying that I also oppose the airport. We live right, the construction of the hangar. We live right next to the airport and our dog park users daily. And the current volume of traffic on airplanes could never support e-bike rentals to pilots. So somewhere in the plan of constructing this hangar, there's obviously a plan of generating enough traffic of the type. Right now we get the types of planes that somebody's comfortable storing on a tie down. So you fly over here and park your plane and go to Whitefish and go home. But you're gonna generate traffic of the type of plane, larger, maybe noisier, that you wouldn't be comfortable just leaving on a tie down, that you'd wanna store in a hangar. Obviously, the traffic, if you're gonna need e-bike rentals for all of these pilots that are coming through, like, we're not having that amount of traffic right now. That's all.
Okay. Thanks, Linda.
I'm Patty Holmes, 170 Johns Way, which is also just south of Armory Road. And we live right next to the airport, about a quarter of a mile away. And the traffic has increased substantially, the air traffic. And we've seen an increase of, for example, the 2 planes that flew over Friday night. You kind of felt like you needed to duck when they came over. But the biggest opposition for me is the increase in traffic and noise, and will the one hangar lead to more increased air traffic? We've lived there for 25 years and frankly have enjoyed having the airstrip there, but in the last 5 years it has increased substantially and has become a noise issue for us personally. So I do oppose this, but yeah, and I thank you.
Thanks, Patty.
Hello, and thanks for welcoming us all to say everything we need to say. I think that's really an important part of being a community too. My name is Shira Marin, and I live at 12 Green Place. The reason I got up is to say something very simple, and that's that we're all people together here. We are a community, and the community has been going through its ups and downs as it seeks to change in ways that are generative for the whole community and for each person in it. And as a psychologist, I just want to stress the challenges that will arise from causing a great deal of stress when it doesn't need to be. It feels like we're contending with so much already. And I can only tell you, I have seen things just even in the summer and leading into it that create stress. There's so much more traffic. You know, I have the leisure of not necessarily traveling at that time, but all the people who do, it took me over 5 minutes to get from the bridge on the river on 93 to First Street the other day. And I'm just thinking, well, yeah, it's summer, but I'm just thinking about what happens to us when we don't pay attention to how much we're being crowded. And the thing that I learned when I came to live here is that, nature comes first, and our relationship with nature, how that nourishes us. And I'm hoping that you will factor into your decision the fact that the more we give without really considering what impact it's going to impact all of us. And it's going to certainly horribly impact the people who've spoken to the point and everybody who lives near them. So I'm just hoping you'll consider all that as part of this, because we're human first. You know, we love our nature. We want to be one with it. And I think we should do everything we can not to destroy that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheila. Nathan.
Nathan Dugan, 937 Kalispell Avenue, lifelong plane guy. I'd be a pilot if I wasn't a physical therapist. Wasn't planning to stay for this or speak for it, but I find it pretty interesting. You know, I think that this is like relatively a non-issue. These planes fly over my house as well. I'm a little further away, so I guess they're a little bit higher, but definitely can still hear them, definitely see them. For what I can tell, it's like two dudes that are flying the plane, so this seems like a kind of an interpersonal issue. If they're flying them a little too much or flying them in the wrong places, maybe we should talk to our neighbors and see if we can get somewhere there before we come to the city council and just try to shut things down. I know that Giuseppe's a pilot. I don't know if anybody else up here flies planes. I think that what we should keep in mind is that this is a 2,500-foot grass strip that, as far as I can tell from the land map on the county website, doesn't have a lot of room to expand. And so the types of planes that will fly into here are just going to be small single-engine planes like they are now. There's really not an ability to have other types of planes here in Whitefish. And so I think it's important to kind of keep that in mind. It sounds like this area may be used, or another area is already being used, but maybe this specific area is already being used to tie down planes, and so just putting those planes indoors is not going to really change anything. And so this is kind of one of those things that I think is scary as an idea, but probably doesn't have that much impact on the back end. And I find it like hard to believe that there's this much opposition to it, to be honest. I think that there are a lot of other far more important things in this town than a 23-foot tall, what amounts to a garage, in a place that, at least from my perspective, doesn't seem to block much view shed or anything else. You know, like the places that people are around that park, there's still plenty of things to look at. And the fact that they could build something even taller by right means that could happen. And so I could really care less. Like, I don't have a plane. I'm never going to have a plane at that airport. I could care less. I just think that this is like emblematic of like why the state comes down on Whitefish a lot. And I think that's important to kind of keep in mind. We can complain about the state saying that, like, oh, they took this away and they took this away. There are these like small things that happen in this town sometimes that causes legislators at the state level to do that. And I think that's important to keep in mind, like when making decisions like this, that, in my opinion, it's my opinion, you guys can have a different opinion, a lot of people here have a different opinion, obviously, like don't have that much of an impact. Thanks.
Thanks, Nathan. Dakota.
Dakota Whitman, 102 Dakota Avenue. And my comment's going to be kind of a zoomed out comment about how Whitefish has a lot of really ambitious goals that we want to achieve, which is something I very much value about this community. And frankly, if we see a 23-foot hangar on an existing airport as this irreparable harm and deny it based on this worst case scenario that doesn't exist, I don't really see how we're going to reach the rest of our ambitious goals that I think will benefit everyone in the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Dakota. Further public comment tonight? If anyone else wants to speak before, Kate, are you wanting to make more comments?
Well, I left something out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I did just want to read one thing.
I'm going to allow Mike Casey first to comment, then we'll go back to those that have already spoken briefly.
Hello, Mike Casey, 195 Blanchard Lake Road. I'm clearly I would love to see a hangar built out there that helps support the aviation community. I've been a pilot for 30 years. I've used that airport my whole pilot life. I've seen the airport when it was a raggedy old, grown up, no one ever mowed it, to where it is today. The reason that is because the local aviation community has taken ownership of that airport. And this hangar is just going to be a benefit to that facility, with a pilot lounge, a place not just for airplanes to be housed, but a place for the equipment that the local aviation community has been paying for, funding. It's not being paid for by the state. It's being paid for by people like Mr. McKinney, myself, and other people that live on the airport. This is not just a place to store airplanes. It's also going to be a place to store equipment that maintains the airport. And for that reason, I support the airport 100%.
Thanks, Mike. Real briefly, Joe, if you have anything new to add.
Joe Courtney, 535 Colorado Avenue. Yeah, I didn't have my paperwork with me the first time, but there was, I Googled, and there was at least two companies on the east side of the mountains, Bozeman and Helena, maybe, that they advertise to fly into Whitefish Airport commercially. There could be more. I don't know that. So I just might keep going and going, and I don't know how many other planes will want to fly in here from other places as a business, and I don't really look at Whitefish Airport as a commercial business for people flying into, but that's what it's turning into. The other thing on that number 6 for the findings, no noise, it's been mentioned already. Yes, there is noise, and being open 24 hours, you're going to have noise 24 hours, believe me. And the last thing is fueling. I'm sure some of these planes are going to need to be fueled. There is no mention of any fueling pad putting on the spot. Where's that? Any spills are going to go. I mean, any fueling of planes should be regulated, and especially in Whitefish, for anything that might leak out. And I know they're going to be need to be refueled. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Kate?
Well, just one comment on Mr. Casey's comment. This was the first that I've heard that there's going to be equipment stored out there, that it's not just airplanes. That wasn't addressed in the staff report or any other testimony prior to just now. So I question what that equipment is and how that's going to increase the use of the hangar. You know, if they're able to plow it during the summer and open up earlier or whatever. So that is something that was completely new information. But anyway, what I left up here was excerpt from the zoning code, and I just want to remind council, this is in this section on conditional use. The granting of, and this is a quote, the granting of a conditional use permit is a matter of grace, resting in the discretion of the city council, and a refusal is not a denial of right, conditional or otherwise. So I'd like to ask city council to use the grace that you have, not to grant that, but the grace to give the people who enjoy that view by preserving it. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
Sheldon Douglas, 1750 2nd Street East, Whitefish, and I'm right there at the dog park where I live, and it does impact us, the noise. It's getting louder. It is quite loud, and back to the other comments about how it's such an iconic view. It really it's something special, and it even adding this building, it would definitely impact this view for sure, 100%. But my one question was in regards to the location of this building. It's located at the end of a runway, and I'm just not sure that the location of that is the best location, because crashes do happen. Just like December 23rd of last year, there was a crash right next to where this building is going to be located. And so I just feel like maybe if they were to locate it in a different spot, less prone to where an accident would happen. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheldon. Further public comment from the audience? Michelle, anyone online wishing to provide comment? I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it back to the council. And why don't we take a 5-minute break real quickly? We will reconvene in about 5 minutes. Folks, if you'd like to take your seats, please, we're going to go ahead and get started. I will call this meeting back to order. I did close the public hearing on item 6A of the agenda, and I'll turn it back to the council now just to move this item forward one way or another. I would entertain a motion to start discussion. Rebecca.
I'd like to make a motion to deny WCUP 2405 based on the findings of fact developed by the Community Development Board.
Is there a second to the motion? That motion fails for a lack of second. We can also start with discussion, questions of staff or the applicants, whatever your preference is. Just like to keep the meeting moving. Giuseppe.
Is it okay to discuss without a motion on the table,
Please.
Mr. Mayor? Okay.
Your prerogative.
I'd love to address some of the comments with some legal facts. Our airport, 58 Sierra, that's the identifier of the Whitefish Airport, is listed in the FAA directory. And I read from the airport facility directory, runway 1129, those are the cardinal directions of the two ends of the runway, is 2,560 feet long by 70 feet wide, and it's turf. So that's defined this way in the FAA directory. But runway 11 has a threshold displacement of 278 feet due to trees. So 270 feet of those 2,560 feet cannot be used to land in that direction, which is towards the east, okay? So landing towards the east, pilots can only access 2,200 feet worth of strip. I wouldn't even call it a runway. Airport remarks it's unattended, snow removal is intermittent, and parachute jumping is allowed. So parachute jumping means that a plane typically comes down, lands towards the dog park, then does a nice U-turn, washing behind the prop, stops, loads the jumpers, then takes off, overflies to 13,000 feet above Whitefish because that's where they want to jump, and lets them jump and keeps doing that. Pattern altitude. It's exactly 1,000 feet above the ground. Now, the FAA forbids any flying unless it's government, within populated areas below 1,000 feet above the highest point within a 2,000 feet radius of that point, or 500 feet above non-populated area. For instance, a seaplane could skim in the middle of Whitefish Lake at 500 feet above the lake and still comply with FAA regulation because the inside of the lake is a non-populated area. Now, there is a big caveat to that, unless when maneuvering for takeoff and landing. So obviously, I have to be below 500 feet if I'm landing or I'm taking off. Hence, if I sit with my house in the path of landing or takeoff at an airport, I will expect having planes flying very close to my roof. Then let's talk about night operations. There are no lights in the airport, although any private pilot could decide to fly at night. It's their own risk. My insurance won't cover me. My insurance would even cover me flying into that airport with my plane. So it's a typical backcountry airport. I flew into Whitefish and I enjoyed it when I was trying to fly in Alaska because it's a backcountry strip, because it's grass. You can fly in it with Piper Cubs, Tabrias, tail draggers, some bigger ones if you want to ruin your plane. As a private pilot or a commercial pilot, I will never park my plane overnight in Whitefish. I mean, we read bicycles are stolen, e-bikes are stolen, cars are broken into. A plane is even more valuable than a car. Now, these are discussions point because, Mr. Mayor and City Council members, I have to say ahead of time that I attended the Community Development Boards, 2 of them, and I accidentally spoke too soon. I spoke that I would support an unanimous vote of the Community Development Board. So on this issue, I will have to abstain, even if I'm against personally.
Rebecca?
So I think when we deal with conditional use permits, they are they're given through our grace, but also through our wisdom. And usually it comes to council because we have a lot of experience with how the city has grown. So to me, this airport is similar to the car lots. They used to be at the far edges of town, outside of town actually. And this was probably well outside of town, so there were no risks in terms of safety. The only thing next to it was the railroad track, and noise wasn't an issue for people either. So I think the city's invested enormous amounts of time, money, public participation to develop the Armory complex. We have 2 skateboards parks out there, a little one and a more advanced one. We have a new running track. We have a playground. We have a dog park. And it's a very valuable community entity. It's also, like some of the testimony has been said, it's a gathering place for the community as well. And people from all around the world come to the dog park because it's well known. So I think that is an enormous investment in our community. We're already hearing complaints from this testimony of people that are having trouble working, sleeping, etc., because of the existing noise. So I have a problem with a special interest group impacting the character of this neighborhood because we've invested so heavily in it being open to everyone, and taking away what is should be a right to all of us, but just to live in peace. So I'm not going to vote for it for that reason. I understand that the pilots are very excited about it, but I think if we say no, other options will arise for their needs. If we say yes, I think what we're doing to what we have created there is pretty much a travesty because we have no control about what will come next. So I am very much against it at this point.
Further comments? Or a motion,
I
please,
can still
to
make
move
a
this
comment
forward.
after there's a motion.
Of course. Yep.
All right, then I'll just tear the Band-Aid off and move to approve WCUP 24-05.
Is there a second to the motion?
For purposes of discussion, yes.
Seconded by Councilor Sweeney. Steve?
I would also like to add an amendment to my motion that there be a bathroom added to this facility. Doesn't have to be a 2-person male-female bathroom, but have a bathroom inside the lounge area.
Nelson, what number condition would this be? 6, if I'm not mistaken?
7.
7. Is everyone clear with the friendly amendment? Is there a second?
Again, I'll second.
Seconded by Councilor Sweeney. We'll vote first on the amendment, which will add condition number 7, which would include the provision of a bathroom in the interior of the hangar. Further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign. This is the toilet amendment. And that motion does carry on a 3-2 vote with Councilors Norton and Davis voting in opposition, if I'm not mistaken. Correct.
It's the first time I've made a toilet amendment. It's wonderful. Thanks, Ben. I'll just go ahead and get my comments out of the way. I'm moving to approve not because I'm not hearing what people are saying about the noise and the view and what feels like death by 1,000 cuts here. Feels like everything we used to take for granted is going away. And this feels like another one. I think that I also know that conditional use permits are a matter of grace by the city council. They are. And the other part of that equation is that we have to, if we think that the the conditions, that we can apply the right conditions to mitigate the use, then I think that it behooves the city council to approve things like this. In terms of the view shed, you're not going to get the same view when you drive up the road anymore. There'll be a hangar there if this is approved and built. But the view is there still. It's just not as easy to access, just like everything else in our town is just not as easy to access anymore. And I think that's a big consideration that people need to understand. The other thing is that with regard to noise, the hangar itself is not going to create noise. Could it create more use out there at the airport, which would then also create more noise? Yes, it could. I live much farther away from the railroad than anybody than anybody that's spoken tonight that's from the airport. And when I'm on the phone in my backyard and there's a train, I have to get off the phone. So, you know, the idea of that we're going to generate so much more noise when we have a railroad siding within a couple hundred feet as well just doesn't sit well with me, that this is going to create that much more noise, that we can't, that's just not automatically mitigated. And I think what we need to have are conditions that actually mitigate the problem. And there will be a landscaping plan. It's not going to just be a bare hangar sitting out there. It's going to have to be landscaped. It's going to be a valuable amenity to a community that we don't really talk much about, one that I'm not a member of, but several people in this room are, and that is our aeronautical community. And what have we done for them? Well, this is the only time they've ever asked us for anything. And I think that this project actually provides an amenity for that community, which is one of our communities in this town, that is probably needed. And so that's my position on this. But please don't take this as that all these comments have fallen on deaf ears. They have not. I get it. I understand it. I feel the death by 1,000 cuts in a lot of different ways. And we continue to need to do things for all of our community members.
Further comments? Frank.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to offer a couple of what I think would be friendly amendments or additional conditions for this that I think might solve, at least address some of the issues that have been identified here today. And with Angie, with your permission, if I can I'll tell you what I want to do, and you tell me whether I can do it or not. I would like to limit the development of this lot to one building as proposed. There can be no additional or subsequent buildings built on this lot, as long as that hangar is there. The second one,
let's address each friendly amendment individually. Angie, are you comfortable with that provision as a condition?
We only have jurisdiction over part of that lot. I mean, you have to keep in mind that that's also county. So we have I guess, how much do we have? 20% of that lot, but we actually have jurisdiction, the rest of it's county.
Okay, so I don't win there. Okay. Yeah, I think, can we limit
the city-owned
parcel? Can we
parcel?
limit it on the city zone piece of that? Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a friendly amendment on the table to add condition number 8 to limit the CUP for the allowance of one building on the city-zoned parcel. Further questions or clarification on that friendly amendment? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign. And that motion does carry on a 4-1 vote with Councilor Norton voting in opposition. Again, that'll be condition number 8. Frank.
I would also add an additional condition that the facility shall not be used as a fixed-based operation to include things like maintenance, or significant maintenance, I'll call it, and any fueling of aircraft.
I'll take that as a friendly amendment and add condition number 9. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Quinnell. Further discussion? Just for clarification, when you indicate significant maintenance, I forget the term you used, of course, there's equipment used to mow and maintain the airstrip.
Right. This is in line of complete breakdown of engines and airframes and that kind of thing.
Okay. Giuseppe, you have a comment on that?
Yes, just a comment. Whitefish, Ferndale, which is the Big Fork grass strip, do not have fueling facilities. Sky Ranch, which is the longest grass strip in Montana, 1 mile, does not have fueling capacities fixed. We need to be aware that anybody could take a truck and go and access the public part of the airport and fuel aircrafts. So I just want to make sure that it's defined however you wish it to be. But if a pilot needs fuel, he can literally go and find a truck authorized that brings fuel to the airport and fuels the plane, regardless of the hangar.
And I think Frank's friendly amendment was for a fixed fueling facility.
Yes.
Is that correct?
At this particular site.
Is everyone clear with the friendly amendment? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and the motion does carry on a 4-1 vote with Councilor Norton voting in opposition. Frank, anything further?
Yes, and I don't know whether we need to do this or not, but it seems to me that given the FAA regulations that there are no lights and shall be no lights at this particular strip, that we, to the extent it's a concern, that we limit operations to, of that facility to daylight or daylight hours as opposed to, and leave it at that. Then it's not a, quote, 24/7 fly in, fly out. I know that's what's not intended, but I'm just trying to give some people some comfort that that's not what's going on here.
Yeah, I don't know that we have jurisdiction to do that. I think that would probably be the state's jurisdiction.
Okay.
Just because, I mean, it's just a hangar, and we don't control the airport, nor do we control the airspace.
Okay. With that said, that's all I think I can do.
Which brings us back to the original motion for approval. Are there any further comments from the council? Andy?
I'll make a few comments just because we had a lot of comments, and I'll address a few more of those. I think I generally have always, and I learned this from Tom Jentz a long time ago, so I'll disagree with Kate a little bit, but conditioned uses are uses that are allowed uses, and while you can't really deny them, you can always condition them to death. They are partly an act of grace, and I do agree with that. But that said, I use both of those things when I make my decisions when I look at conditioned uses. And along with an act of grace, I like to have some findings that will support that. And I need to have some sort of grounds to hang my hat on at the end of the day, so I feel good about myself that I've applied the law equally to anyone that comes before us. And in this case, I've not been able to do that. The only argument that holds true for me is the view shed argument, quite frankly. The noise and argument, dust, and all of those things, when you have the BN line 200 yards away or less from the dog park with 30 to 40 trains a day running on there. Arguments about potential spills of gasoline when we have unit trains of Bakken crude going by there daily. When I look at all of those things, I'm like, you know, I can't support that finding. It's just not valid. And the only other one, like I said, is the view shed. And I go out there, I'm a dog park user, although not as much as I used to because my young dog's a little grumpy. If you stand where the hangar's at right now, and if you look at the elevation of the railroad tracks there, the railroad tracks, I'm not sure what the grade differential is there. Christine probably knows. It's probably about 6 to 8 feet, something like that. And when the trains roll through that are hauling cars with the very tall double-decker, moving automobiles from the West Coast to the Midwest where they're sold, the top of those cars is probably a little over 20 feet. And those trains sit there for hours every day. And if we want to talk about blocking view sheds, to the north, we've got mile-long trains some days sitting there, and they block a lot of view shed. So when I look at that, I'm kind of thinking it's like one building is probably not going to make that much difference. And I think it is true, and somebody said it, you really only notice it coming down 2nd Avenue. And you have that view blocked, and I will give everyone that. That is a very true thing. Some comments made in some of the letters to us about the heritage of Whitefish and the character of our community. We've had a grass strip in this community for almost 100 years. Grass strip aviation in Montana has a long history, and I can't tell you the number of landing strips around us, whether it's Schaefer Meadow or it's Meadow Creek or it's Spotted Bear or it's the one at West Glacier, it's Sky Ranch, it's Ferndale. That is a very big part of history in this part of the world too, and there's a lot of people that maybe have moved here in a number of years that don't know that. And I think the point being made that the aviation community is important, and the other thing people don't really remember is I think at one time we were supposed to take care of that airport. It fell on the city, and the aviation community stepped up and they took that facility over and have improved it and made it a lot better. And I also can't buy the argument that simply building a hangar there is going to increase the traffic of planes. It just, even if you look at it, if one of the planes is one of the planes that's already flying there and you've got spots for a couple more, it's not going to be that many more takeoffs and landings on a daily basis. People aren't going to fly here from New York simply because there's a hangar now. It's still going to be a small grass strip that's totally surrounded by private land on all four sides. It can't get any bigger. That's the other point, I think. And its operation is always going to be limited to certain times of the year. They're not going to be landing there when it's soft in the spring, and they're not going to be landing there when it's wet in the fall. So when I look at all of those things, I have a really hard time supporting a denial that we got from the Community Development Board. So that said, I will support the motion.
Further discussion or comments? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and the motion does pass on a 4-1 vote with Councilor Norton voting in opposition with the addition of 3 conditions. Thanks everyone for your comments tonight, and let the record reflect that Councilor Caltabiano did recuse himself from the vote. I just did. Yeah, because I heard you. We're going to go ahead and keep moving here and move on to item 6B of our agenda. And that will be ordinance 24-8, amending zoning regulations, Title 11, Chapter 8, Section 1, Appendices, Appendix F, Whitefish sign districts, and Appendix G, sign standards tables of the Whitefish City Code. And this will be on a first reading. David.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So this is implementation of our Highway 93 South Corridor Plan. It was adopted a couple years back. Within that plan, it recommended some changes to the sign district boundaries of the city. Currently, there are 5 sign districts: the Highway District, the Old Town District, the Community Business and Resort District, the Business Service District, and then the remainder of the city, which is in the Residential Sign District. So currently within Old Town and the Highway Districts, there's areas where the sign district boundaries expanded out, and on the map that you see before you can see the areas where we're kind of dialing back the sign district boundaries that have commercial sign districts that overlay our residential neighborhoods, which commercial uses wouldn't be allowed, therefore commercial signs would not be allowed. So we adjusted the outline of them so that just overlaps where there's existing commercial property. And then in the Highway District, which expands all the way down Spokane Avenue, which allows the largest signs in the city. We're recommending changing that to portions of it to Community Business and Resort that more reflect the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit of that area. Out on Highway 40 intersection and beyond there, where the city has just more recently extended water and sewer and changed the area where the city could expand out there. Currently doesn't have a sign district in the city, and we're going to overlay that with the Business Service District sign district. And then there's some areas on Big Mountain that's not shown on this map, which we may be bringing them within the city here fairly soon, where we have some existing sign districts, but we would overlay the Community Business and Resort District over that area. And then finally, we have a sign district table that's in Appendix G of the code, and that was never updated to include the Business Service sign district when that was added to our code back in 2009 or so. And so within the existing staff report, there's a couple of maps that will just show where the existing boundaries are and then where the new boundaries would be. Staff does support this change. We brought it to the Community Development Board. They did recommend unanimously to approve this, and I'd be glad to try to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Thanks, Dave. Any questions for Dave? Not seeing any. We did advertise for a public hearing on what will be ordinance 24-8. We'll hold that public hearing now. Any public testimony? Michelle, anyone online? I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it back to the council for a motion. Frank?
I would move to approve ordinance 24-08, an ordinance amending the zoning regulations, Title 11, Chapter 8, Section 1, Appendices, etc.
Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councilor Quinnell. Further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that is unanimous. We'll move on to item 7A, which is consideration of a request from Summer Home LLC for a Whitefish Lake and Lakeshore permit to the riparian setbacks in a constructed area variance located at 727 LM Beach Lane, WLV 24-W01. Nelson.
Good evening. Yes, so 727 Elm Beach Lane has 31 and a half feet of lake frontage. They're requesting a dock under 60 feet with a variance to the riparian setbacks and the constructed area limit. So some background on this. Last summer, I received a complaint that there was a dock that without a permit that has been expanded. So looking at some aerial imagery, it looks like sometime between 2014 and 2017, a dock appeared at this address that does not have a permit. I would notify the property owner. They informed me the dock was removed and that they would be looking for a variance request next summer per what I told them in the letter. So there's currently, again, no dock permit. There is a 20-foot minimum riparian setback from both sides of a dock on Whitefish Lake. So because they are less than 40 feet, it would not be possible for them to meet that riparian setback. So they are just required to put any dock in the middle of the property. So they are also seeking a request of 191.4 square feet variance in order to install a 380 square foot dock. So currently, they have 63.4 square feet of stairs and pathways down to the lake. The unpermitted dock was a 4-shaped dock that was about 709 square feet. So it originally was an I dock, and then last summer it was expanded to a 4-shaped dock, and that had that was 45 feet long, had 30-foot wings, a 30-foot wide wing section. So just considering the existing stairs, there is 220.5 square feet available for them to work with. So again, they're requesting a minor variance to the riparian setbacks and constructed area in order to install a 380 square foot I dock. That would be 8 feet wide, 40 feet long, with a 20-foot by 3-foot gangway up to the dock. The riparian setback would be 11 feet 9 inches from both riparian boundaries. So as far as for a consideration for a minor variance for lakeshore construction permits, there's about 3 criteria. So we are looking at, due to unusual circumstances, the strict enforcement of such requirements and standards would result in undue hardship. So as the property is narrower than the minimum riparian setbacks, any dock would require a variance and would not be allowed without a variance because it only has 31 and a half feet of lake frontage. It is still possible in this case to put the dock in the middle of the property in order to keep navigation possible between properties. It is a very small lake frontage, only allowing for 252 square feet. So there is a site-specific hardship because the lake frontage does not allow for any size dock due to it lot being narrower than the minimum required riparian setbacks. 2, no reasonable alternatives exist which do meet the standards herein. There's no alternative placement for the dock due to the narrow width of the lake frontage. It has to be located in the middle of the property. And again, so it's unavoidable it's not going to be able to meet the 20-foot riparian setbacks either way. Now, the dock, the staff does not find the size of the requested dock unreasonable. 60 feet is the maximum for an administrative dock, including the gangway. So there's no reasonable alternative location for the dock due to the limitations of the lake frontage and riparian setback. The third criteria is granting of the variance will not have adverse impacts on the lake or lakeshore. In terms of the policy criteria for issuance of a permit, there's A through F criteria as far as water quality, shoreline, wildlife, recreation, navigation, or environmental impacts that would not be there if the variance was granted. Alternatively, subsections A and B, if granting the variance would result in a general universal public benefit. In this case, there is no general universal public benefit as it is a private dock. So staff recommended approval to Lakeshore Protection Committee. The Lakeshore Protection Committee voted 2-2 for and against, so they're proceeding with no recommendation based on the findings, based on the conditions of approval. Most of these conditions of approval are standard for docks. There is one additional condition that I put on due to it being for a variance, and that's condition 12. Usage of a dock is limited to the properties applied for in the permit application when the dock is granted under variance. And then another note is that I did receive word last week that an iDock was installed on the property. I went out with the Lakeshore Protection Committee and the Whitefish Lake Institute Wednesday as advertised, and I did take video, and there was a iDock installed. Earlier this evening, I was informed that that dock has since been taken out, and just wanted to let the council be aware that that has happened since the Lakeshore Protection Committee meeting.
Thanks, Nelson. Any questions for Nelson? I do have one, but Steve, go ahead.
Did you confirm that it's been taken out, or you just heard that it's been taken out?
No, I heard from a neighbor that has been taken out, but I just wanted to let you know, yes. But I did confirm that it was installed.
Okay, thank you.
Andy.
So we've had 2 docks installed without a permit within a 12-month period, one of which was 30 feet wide.
So
do these people not know that we have lakeshore protection regulations in this community?
So originally, in 2014, I believe before the current owner, there was an iDock that was not permitted. And then, since then, last year, it was expanded to a 4
Without a
shape.
permit.
Correct. So it was expanded once last year. It was taken out after I notified them. And then then apparently between, last summer and now, so between the last Lakeshore Protection Committee meeting and last week, when I went out Wednesday to look, they had installed an iDock, and then a neighbor told me today that it had been taken out. So yes, there's been 2 docks placed without a permit, really 3, but 2 recently in the last year, like you said.
Rebecca.
So how does it work with penalties and fines for people that don't follow our lakeshore protection rules?
I can pass that along to Angie, but typically, with the first violation, I sent them a letter just to make sure that they're aware and that can come back in compliance. Other than that, it does go to legal for prosecution and in cases of violations.
Angie, would you speak to that? Have they had any legal action against them for this?
I wasn't even aware of it until I read the packet, Rebecca. So, no, they have not.
Nelson, just to clarify, so under their lakeshore frontage, they're allowed a total constructed surface area of 252 square feet, correct?
Correct.
They have existing stairs within the lakeshore protection zone totaling 31.5 square feet. Is that correct?
No, it's 63.4 feet.
So that would leave a balance of 188.6 square feet of allowed constructed area, yet they're requesting a dock at 380 square feet?
Correct.
Which would exceed what's allowed by how much?
191.4 square feet.
Thank you. Further comments or questions for Nelson? Ben?
Sorry, why do they need one that big?
That is what the applicant submitted.
Rebecca?
I guess this is a question for staff. I don't know what to do when we have someone that's cheated 3 times and has now submitted an application for something that exceeds what we normally allow. How do we deal with that legally when they were just non-compliant this last week?
Generally, you guys can issue an after-the-fact permit, or you can deny the permit based on the noncompliance. So.
And to speak to that, an after-the-fact permit for lakeshore construction permits is 4 times the permit fee.
Traditionally, when I sat on the Lakeshore Committee eons ago, when we do have substandard lot shoreline lengths, widths, we typically do require that the dock be centered if they can't meet the riparian setbacks, correct? So that's really not an issue here in this case of requiring them to center the dock on the lot, correct?
Correct.
That is our precedent. What I have a major issue with is what's been discussed here tonight regarding the current violations at the property and the fact that they're requesting a dock size that's significantly larger than what would be allowed under standard lakeshore regulations. And not in my history of sitting on the committee for 8 or 9 years back in the late 1990s through early 2000s before I got up here, do I feel that we ever allowed that level of variance. And I'll just put that out for some institutional knowledge for the council. Rebecca?
You mean variance in terms of the excess square footage
Correct.
requested, not variance in terms of the egregious behavior of not complying?
I'm referring to the additional square footage being requested beyond what's allowed under the current regulations. Steve?
Yeah, Nelson, is there a reason why they're asking for that much? Is it shallow water there? Did they provide any justification for why they needed that much square footage for their dock?
I was not presented any additional information in that regard. Essentially,
That's just what they asked for.
Correct.
Okay.
There's no depth hardship documented in the permit.
Okay.
I would entertain a motion to continue this discussion. Andy?
If I might, if I could get Mr. James Laidlaw to come up here for about 2 seconds. I'd like to ask him a question. Sorry, Jimmy. But you're here, and I know you have some information that I'd like to extract.
Jim Laidlaw. I think I know many of you. And I live at 1822 Rapids Avenue in Columbia Falls, but I'm also the representative of Lion Mountain Board of Directors. And I am in charge of the beach at Lion Mountain.
So my question, Jim, is on that, what essentially is sort of the southwest side of the dock, your side of the dock, where you guys' docks are at, is there adequate turning movement in their space for a boat when your guys' docks are all fully deployed? Because the photo we have, your docks are all on the beach, so.
Yeah, that's our swim area. And and we have swim buoys set up, and it's, that comes to 11 feet from the, proposed dock.
The swim buoys come 11 feet from the proposed dock?
Yeah, they're right on there's an encroachment on the property line, and the new dock was encroaching on it and caused some concern to, our residents, and it's right in the swim area. And we did go to the Lakeshore Protection meeting, and they asked if we could do something about giving some extra space on the side, but we're restricted. We're absolutely, 20 years ago, when we put the docks in. So we can't give anything, and that's the same issue with the other side. But we don't, I mean, this is a hardship. She did not do this knowingly, and I will attest to that, there was an eye dock, there was a dock there, an eye dock there. It was confirmed to me that it was granted by the county when Ken Reeser built the house. And couldn't find the documents, but that's when the county was in charge of, of that particular area. And so, and then that dock was never an issue. I mean, it was a small single boat dock, but this one grew, and so it is a concern. But I hate to see her not able to at least have something there to be able to get in and out, and we just have to all use care. But that isn't. It just affects our swim area, but we're willing to cooperate as best we can. So.
Thank you. I didn't mean to wake you up back there.
Sorry about that.
Steve, have you any other
Can
questions?
I make a motion?
Yes, please.
I'd move to deny variance WLV 24-W01.
Is there a second to the motion?
Once again, I will second for purposes of discussion. if
Seconded
nothing
by
else.
Councilor Sweeney. Steve?
As it's presented, I don't, it fails to meet the size of the dock fails to meet criteria number one and number two, but primarily number two. No reasonable alternatives exist.
Ben?
I would just make a comment that I don't really have an issue with the dock being in the middle of the lot. The size of it, I don't understand, and I don't think that's consistent with what we allow for other docks. So I don't think I'm gonna support the motion. If somebody wanted to make one that changed the square footage to be whatever is normally allowed in the circumstance, I would support that.
Further discussion? Rebecca?
Yeah, I agree with what Ben said. I think we need a solution here. It's kind of shocking how this came about. But I agree. I think if we approved a dock that was 188.6 square feet of allowable, which would come under our standards, then this might not be a continuing saga.
Thanks, Rebecca.
A point of order, can we do that in a variance request? We can change what they've asked for in terms of the variance? Or do they need to come back with a new variance
Angie?
request?
I think, in the past, that, you're willing to grant, I think the Board of Adjustment, sometimes someone asks for a 3-foot setback and they're willing to give them a 6-foot setback because that's what the building code says or whatever. So you guys do have the purview to say, we'll grant the variance for the riparian setback, but not the variance for the dock square footage. And that way they would still have to meet that. So, there's two parts to the variance. One's for the riparian, one's for the dock square footage. So you could choose to do one of those and not the other.
Thanks, Dave. You want your motion to stand?
I'll amend my motion if that's okay.
Amend?
Yeah, if I can.
Please.
To approve the riparian setback, but not the dock side, not the dock size.
Is that okay with the second?
Certainly.
Okay.
I guess I would add one friendly amendment to that because they installed the dock and then just took it out, but they installed it with foreknowledge that they shouldn't have and that it didn't meet the requirement that they come back to us with a new plan for a dock. I'm willing to go ahead and support the variance for the riparian setback, and they will be required to have an after-the-fact permit application for a new plan.
That's inherent to your motion essentially, correct?
Yes, that's acceptable. I didn't know if I needed to make a separate motion for that.
So approval of the riparian setback, denial of the dock variance, they'll have to come back for an after-the-fact permit to planning.
Yeah, they can only get it through an after-the-fact permit.
Okay.
And I think, Angie, I'm justified in asking for that because they did install the dock and we had our Lakeshore Protection Committee go out there and actually see it in the water, so.
Yeah, you are, Nelson. I actually talked about that a little bit this afternoon too. That's appropriate.
Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and the motion does carry unanimously. Thanks, Nelson. We'll move on to item 8. A, consideration to authorize staff to bid the viaduct improvement project. This stems from a work session we had months ago, so it shouldn't be new information for everyone. Craig?
A little bit of new information here. So I'll kind of keep this brief on the introduction. I know everybody's familiar with the project. We've talked about it for a number of years, but I think everyone's familiar with the viaduct improvement project. It's been identified in a number of past planning efforts, including the Downtown Master Plan, Connect Whitefish Master Plan, Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan. We've been working with WGM Group for about 2 years on the project, and we've provided council a few different updates and received direction on a number of decisions that came from the Montana Department of Transportation. The most recent presentation came to council last September when we were directed to proceed with kind of 4 tasks in this project. Widening the bike lanes with the use of the existing Jersey barriers, the removal of the southbound slip lane on the west side of Baker and Railway, the installation of decorative streetlights, which will include flower baskets and irrigation, as well as the completion of the gateway landscaping components that are shown in the downtown master plan. We sent a copy of the 90% plans to MDT back in May after working with their design team for about 8 months. Previous to that, they received 30% and 60% plan submittals, and we had very few comments. Unfortunately, the middle of last month, we just received a comment from MDT that they will not be able to approve any landscaping on the project. It turns out that MDT has an agreement with BNSF for the viaduct, and their opinion is that that agreement does not include landscaping. So we're going to have to kind of go back to the drawing board on the landscaping components and work with BNSF on that. However, rather than delay the critical safety aspects of the project, I am recommending for approval to move forward with the bidding of elements 1 through 3, which would be the widening of the bike lanes, the addition of the street lights, and the removal of the slip lane. I'm optimistic that we can convince BNSF that the landscaping components do actually contribute to the uses that MDT has for the viaduct, but it's going to take us some time, as with most things with BNSF. So at this point, the total estimated construction cost is $665,000. That does include the $80,000 in landscaping and about a 25% contingency for all the work. And we did include $700,000 to cover all of this in the preliminary fiscal year 25 budget. So at this point, it is my recommendation that council authorize staff to bid the plans as shown in your packet, minus the landscaping components.
Thanks, Craig. Any questions for Craig on his staff report, besides voicing frustration? We'll start with Ben and then Frank.
So is the landscaping possibly going to work out, or is it just straight up no way?
I think it's going to work out. We actually had comments from the right-of-way department at MDT about the landscaping earlier on. They were concerned about 1 or 2 of the species of trees that we were using. We made that change. 1 or 2 of the trees they thought had kind of a vision triangle issue, and that was the end of it. So I think we kind of got through the comments about the particular landscaping. It wasn't until the next level of MDT review came, which was through the legal department, and they said, well, we can't even approve it. So I'm fairly confident that we can get an approval through BNSF, or at least a decision through BNSF, that the existing agreement can allow for the landscaping.
So if I felt that was a kind of an important item here, I mean, what would be the timeline or process to fully explore that?
I mean, my goal would be to get the approval over the winter, which would enable us to bid the landscaping components separately and install it next spring.
Okay. And is there anything, by not doing it now, is it costing a lot more later, or can it be
No, I mean, it'll essentially be a second advertisement in the paper, maybe a little more work to do the bid and the bid opening, but I'm really hesitant to include work in an existing bid set that we know we don't have approval to install. If it does take longer, it winds up being a negative change order, and you're essentially telling the contractors that you have, permission to do the work that you're bidding, and so I'm just, at this point, not comfortable including it in the current bid set.
Frank?
I'm going to follow up on that just a little bit. I mean, we have in the past had what I'll call bid alternatives. Could we send the whole thing out to, I'm trying to create some efficiency for you as us as anything else. Can we send the thing out with that, the landscaping as a bid alternate so that we get some idea where we're going with this thing?
Yeah, I mean, the problem with that creative thinking, I like it. The problem with bid alternates is you award them at the time of the original bid award. So you typically do bid alternates when you're looking for pricing and you're either gonna award it or not. If we were to bid it as an alternate, we would have to make the decision before we start the project if we're gonna award the alternate or not.
Okay, I'll take your judgment on it, but it seems to me that this is one headache after another without any.
It's frustrating.
Steve?
So I just want to clarify one thing because a couple people kind of raised some issues. We're just taking out the triangle or pork chop on the west side when you come down the viaduct.
Correct.
To the west.
Yep.
Not
Yep,
the one on the
slip
other
lane
side.
on the east side
Slip lane,
between
thank you.
O'Shaughnessy and, no, I like pork chop's good. That's more technical. The one on the east side between O'Shaughnessy and Marcus will remain.
Okay. The other thing that I'm having a little heartburn over is that this thing was a big project that we were going to put out to bid and do it all at once, and now it's getting piecemealed back even further. Seems like it makes sense that that's just going to cost us more money in the long run. And we're already, with this, it seems like we're looking at $650,000 to move the Jersey barriers and repave. How is that inaccurate?
Well, no, there's a significant amount of work to remove the slip lane, do the curbing removal and replacement, to widen the bike lanes, and to do the lighting. The lighting will include irrigation, which has a component to it that involves excavation and plumbing on both sides of the viaduct to make sure that the lights can support the water baskets. So if you look at the breakdown, the removal and replacement of the Jersey barriers alone is less than $100,000.
Okay. All right. That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve. I'd entertain a motion to authorize bidding for elements 1 through 3, please. Rebecca?
Okay, I move to authorize staff to bid the viaduct improvement project with the elimination of the landscaping component, including elements 1 to 3.
Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councilor Fury. Further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Oh, sorry.
Yes, you know my position if you remember my vote last time, but I wanted to comment on this. Certain items have priority, and the path and bicycle trails have a priority in my heart. At the same time, we're presented right now with a preliminary budget that raises our taxpayer mill base by 7.75 mills. Now, this project this year is $665,000 estimated, which by the mill base of $81,000 per mill equals 8.2 mills, money to money. If we move the Jersey barriers from your packet, it looks like it would be only $100,000. I wonder if it wouldn't be wiser as a statement to our citizens to say, let's improve the safety by moving the Jersey barriers and keep the tax-paying mill amount flat this year. For that reason, if the motion stays this way, I'll vote against it.
Dana, can you clarify that? I don't think we're raising 7.75 mils on our taxpayer for the FY25 budget to pay for this project, correct?
No, not for this project. And if you were to eliminate this project, we wouldn't be able to reduce taxes anyways. It's a different source of funding. This is coming from the street fund, which is, there is street maintenance assessments. Those aren't budgeted to increase. Those are budgeted to remain flat. So essentially, I guess you could reduce those, but those do not generate, I think, but a couple $100,000 a year in total. But the property taxes are a general levy that are going mostly to our general fund and other property tax board funds, not the street fund.
Clarifying question, will impact our cash reserves?
Yes, this project does spend on cash reserves in the street fund.
Thanks, Giuseppe. Further discussion? Ben?
I would just say that I think the design of the downtown master plan and the future vision of this viaduct area is very good. I've said that before. I know this is a lot for a small stretch of road, but this is a pretty key, pretty visible part of our community that people see every day. And there are lots of pedestrians and cyclists that go over that bridge, and safety issues with the roads and other things. So I think the plan's thought out. I'm a little disappointed about how this does keep getting whittled back. I am going to support this motion, but I would also put it with a request that we try to figure out the landscaping and stay on top of that so we can do that in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Ben. Further comments on the motion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and the motion does carry on a 5-1 vote with Giuseppe voting in opposition. We will move on to item 8B, which will be consideration to provide direction to staff regarding the Whitefish Yards off-site trail and pedestrian bridge. This is on page 205 of your packet. Craig.
Thank you very much. Also a topic that's pretty near and dear to your hearts. I think, as Bruce Booty mentioned earlier, quite a bit of history to the Whitefish Yards, previously named 95 Carroll Project. Council did approve the preliminary plat and PUD back in January of 2018. A pedestrian bridge crossing the Whitefish River was amongst the proposed improvements, along with off-site trails to the north and east ends of the project. While the approved engineering plans did include these amenities, it came to light last summer that there's some confusion over the payment and responsibility for construction and maintenance of the off-site trail sections. We held discussions at council last summer on August 7th and August 14th regarding the developer's request for the city to cover some or all of these costs. City staff worked extensively with the design team for Whitefish Yards, and we fully acknowledge the importance of the project, the relationship to Whitefish downtown, and the connections to the existing trail network. These connections have been a crucial part of many discussions, and the consensus has always been that they need to be as direct as possible in both visibility and physical distance. The engineer's estimate, which is included in your packet for these off-site trail construct sections, is $382,000. This includes about $230,000 in retaining walls, as the eastern connection is relatively steep, tying into the BN Loop Trail. The council meeting last August, there was discussion about the city sharing some portion of the construction costs. However, we have not at this point budgeted any cost for the trail connections, and city contributions would take away from other obligations. To further complicate the discussion, we know about the BNSF Loop Trail being possible through what's called a revocable license agreement with BNSF. And although this license has been amended over the years, DNRC staff, who would be approving the actual bridge, has stated that we need a perpetual easement from BNSF to construct the bridge. So we've been working with BN and DNRC on the situation since last August, and we just received word a couple weeks ago from the legal department at DNRC that we may have some other options. Angie has been working with their attorneys on that. So we're optimistic that we may be close to an amicable solution on that. But at this point, we're really just recommending that staff continue this discussion, or council continue this discussion, and provide staff with some direction on how to proceed with the cost share.
Thanks, Craig. We'll open it up for questions from council. Rebecca.
It was on that whole time. Sorry, you guys. Craig, if we were to fund that this summer, or maybe this is Dana, is there any money available from the city to make this move forward more quickly?
So currently in the fiscal year 25 preliminary budget, we're spending down reserves quite heavily in most of our funds. In fact, our property tax supported funds are going down over $1 million at this point related to capital. But the general fund will be sitting, this is preliminary, so we're still waiting on year-end numbers. We just finished year-end yesterday. But preliminary, we're going to be sitting with about 28% cash reserves in the general fund. You could spend down $250,000 for this project, which would bring us down to 25% cash reserves in the general fund. I wouldn't recommend going much further. The resort tax fund does have $150,000 budgeted for fiscal year 25 for trail construction, but that's for Riverbend. So you are competing, we would utilize that additional $150,000 if the full amount, the $382,000 was funded by the city, you know, roughly $400,000, you'd have to utilize the $150,000 from resort tax or be comfortable spending down the general fund further. So I think it's just one of those things where it is competing with other trail projects. There is $100,000 budgeted in the Parks Fund for the Riverbend Trail to continue with engineering. So we do still have those funds, but any construction funds that we would have to start the project could be utilized for this. The other option you have is to levy 5 mills and increase property taxes across the board. For a home at $800,000 value, it'd be about $60 a year. So those are your options.
Thank you.
Ben?
So what's being proposed here? Is this, are we doing the construction ourselves? Are we paying the developers to do the construction? What's the timing of it?
If the city were to take on the project, yeah, we'd have to bid it ourselves. I mean, the plans are designed. I know that there's a contractor that's been working on the project. LHC has been the general on the project, I believe, from the beginning, and so they're familiar with the project, but it would have to be bid if it were to use public funds.
And so would we be directing you now, if that's the direction we went, to say, go out and bid this at some future date whenever the permitting's done, just basically accepting responsibility for it in the future?
I mean, that could be one direction, yeah.
What are the other directions?
I mean, if the city, sorry, they couldn't make it tonight. If the city, if council is interested in constructing both of the off-site trail sections, then yeah, we would want direction to bid it based on the current design that TD&H has done.
Okay, and what would be the timing of that happening?
I would think we could probably turn it around pretty quickly. The design is done, so, you know, we'd want to work with TD&H on the bidding. I don't know if there's any, will we have to buy the plans from you? I would think it could still happen this summer.
Okay, and is this the last thing that's holding us up to get this bridge done?
We still need approval from DNRC and BNSF to install the bridge and to make the Eastern Trail connection. The Eastern Trail connection would require an amendment from BNSF, and the bridge would require an amendment from BNSF that DNRC approves.
So would we be building this expensive retaining wall project with no guarantee of ever having a bridge?
I would think we would wait to build the trail sections until we have the bridge nailed down. Yeah. We do have an existing amendment from BNSF to construct the northern trail section, which would go under the existing trestle and then connect to Sky Park Bridge, which was a much more cost-effective of the two. I can't remember the exact amount. I can get to it in a second here.
But the permitting timeline could be eons, right?
I actually think we've made, Craig in particular has been absolutely wonderful about pushing DNRC. Because, I mean, the real issue is, you know, DNRC is saying in order to provide you a permanent easement over the navigable river, we need a permanent easement from BNSF where the bridge is going to land. BNSF does not offer permanent easements. BNSF offers licenses. So Craig has, I think, been just a bulldog about asking DNRC, well, what can we do? What can we do? And finally, we had an answer a couple weeks ago. Well, we can probably work with you on this. Whether or not BNSF is willing to work with us is kind of a different story. But I think we've had some headway with them. A little bit of background. When this was originally came up, they wanted an entirely different license agreement, where Craig's idea was just tack it on to a 2005 agreement, which makes complete sense. And they were like, absolutely not, we're gonna do a different license agreement. Craig talked them off of that. So I think we're making headway, but I mean, still in with the state and it's still in with BNSF. It's kind of, it's a process.
Steve, I'm a little lost in where the developer commitment part is. Because it's part of the CUP or the PUD was to build the trail, right?
Yeah, there was a condition of approval for the PUD to build the trail on the developer's side.
Okay.
There was never a condition that required the bridge or required the off-site connections. However, the approved engineering plan showed all of those components. And so the plan set that's approved does show those components, but the understanding of the developer was that the city would contribute to those portions of the plan that weren't specifically conditioned to be built.
Okay. Then,
With the exception of the bridge. I believe Casey has.
I get that stuff.
Okay.
What I'm hearing you saying though is that we don't have anything firm in terms of approving placing the bridge across the river. So,
correct.
But there is the issue of building the northern or western section of the trail that connects from the front side of Whitefish Yard all the way over to where the other bridge is, correct?
Correct.
And the developer still has to finish that, correct?
Well, the developer is only required to construct, as part of the PUD, they're only required to construct the trail on their property.
Okay.
So going from their property to the existing Sky Park Bridge goes on to BNSF land, where we do have an agreement from BNSF to build it, but it wouldn't be a requirement for final plat.
Gotcha. But we could build that section.
We could build that section, and yeah, the estimated cost for that's $120,000.
Okay, that's the first box in the packet.
Yep.
Okay, that makes more sense now. Okay.
Rebecca?
Yeah, Craig, I guess it's for Craig and Angie. If we authorize this spend down from general funds tonight, do you think it would give you some clout to work with the DNRC and Burlington Northern to say everything's in place but you? So we could get this done if you just said yes?
No, I don't think that would, I'm sorry, I just don't. I understand BNSF's point of view, and I think we're getting headway with DNRC. We're getting them to move on their position, but I don't think saying that we budgeted the money for it would move the needle much, truthfully.
Steve?
Just offer what I think the direction, what my opinion on the direction would be to finish the northern part of the trail, the northwestern part of the trail. I understand that when we do go in, we'll have to tear up part of it to build the buttresses and to put the bridge in, but right now it's an ugly misconnection on the trail, and I would like to see us build that and spend the $128,000 on that, and then have you come back to us when we have that permit in place, and then we can look at where we are funding-wise and determine the rest of it at that point. But I think the northern, western part of the trail needs to be finished.
Under the trestle connecting to, yep. Is everyone comfortable with that direction? Would you like to put that into just a more formal direction to staff and we'll vote on it?
Sure. that we would authorize the BNSF North portion of Craig's staff report for $123,587.42, or that's the estimate, and that would come from a spend down of general funds.
Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councilor Norton. Further discussion?
Can I just ask, is there any concerns with staff going this way? Can we do it that way? Just do one and not the other?
I mean, I guess I'm a little concerned about putting a specific dollar amount to it. This is a cost estimate based on, I don't know if these are numbers specifically from LHC. Okay, so these are the numbers that LHC bid to the private developer. So when you add, you know, public wage rates and some of the other insurance conditions that we have, that's likely going to go up, but I think it's going to be plus or minus 10%. So I can take the direction, move forward with the bidding of that section of trail, and we wouldn't be able to do anything until I come back and have council award the project anyway.
That implied by your motion?
Yes, yes.
I would just state that if we do move forward with the other aspects of the project, given our history with FWP and the 124, we should probably get that underway, at least pre-application to FWP at some point, just so we have some assurance that we're even going to get permits for that section of the trail along the river.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the bridge and the western connections would be covered under the 310 permit.
I'm referring to the section that we would ultimately be responsible for building.
The section to the north or the section to the east?
East.
The section to the north, I don't believe is within any waterway jurisdiction. So
Okay,
we're
so we're
fine there. The section to the east, I believe the abutment would need to be under the 310 permit because the developer would be doing it, and then once you're out of that,
Perfect.
the
Okay.
trails are outside of FWP jurisdiction.
Just checking.
It's just BNSF.
Okay, thanks, Craig. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that's unanimous. Thanks, Steve. Frank?
I just want to add one thing. I mean, I think it's clear, not just from this motion, but from the discussion, we clearly want to continue to perfect whatever interest we need to be able to eventually install the bridge. Is that clear? That is part of the charge here?
Clearly.
I get that.
Okay.
We'll move on to item 8A. You have Dana's report enclosed, 9A, excuse me, enclosed with the packet. Any questions for Dana on her manager's report? Dana, anything additional to report on?
I do. In my manager's report, and DC came today to share that they have a public hearing on July 11th. They did request that the city council provide a written letter in support of their rate increase as it pertains to the our interlocal agreement and potential amendment that you'll be considering here soon. So if you'd like me to do so, I'm happy to draft a letter sharing how city taxpayers are footing some of the bill right now, and we hope that they pay their fair share in the future. So I would just need like a general hands showing. Okay.
Good.
Good.
Okay.
Other one, just a couple more updates. PD, we are happy to share that, and as I get my notes here, I got myself all messed up. Officer Jake Firkin and Officer Hayden Cook graduated from the Montana Law Enforcement Academy Basic number 184 on June 23rd. They both did an excellent job representing themselves, the police department, and the city of Whitefish. So kudos to them. And just some general announcements, and maybe you guys will share them later, but fireworks will be going off. It is 4th of July week. We will be closed on Thursday, 4th of July here at City Hall. Fireworks can only be discharged between 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. on July 3rd, and between 11 a.m. and 11:59 p.m. on July 4th. We also have the City Beach Fireworks Show that's sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce, and that will begin at 10:30. We have right now candidate filing for the Local Government Study Commission member positions is open. It opened June 18th and will close August 12th. So those interested in serving on our Local Government Review Commission should see the notice on our website, but can also contact Michelle if they have any questions. And finally, I wanted to talk about the TAC, the Transportation Advisory Committee that we discussed at our last work session, and just get some direction on process for us. It seemed pretty clear to me that the council was considering a Transportation Advisory Committee, or a Technical Advisory Committee, as Kalispell calls theirs. If you'd like us to proceed with that, we could draft a resolution. Kind of some comments and questions that I have, if we're going to do that, is do we look at combining bike ped with this committee? If so, should we take that resolution through the bike ped through to the park board, or are you guys wanting to make that decision and pull those job duties? And how would you like that process to go? I will share that the makeup of the advisory committee for the city of Kalispell does include primarily Kalispell city staff, 2 city residents, the Chamber of Commerce, 2 county residents, a Flag County Commissioner, and then representation from the Montana Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration. So very few public members, more staff related, and then County Commissioner as well.
Dana, would you have time not to put anything more on your plate, just to bring us back what those options could look like?
I can do that, bring
And
it to
just
you guys
a
before we go to
brief
park
memo,
board
and
or
then- yeah.
bike ped, sure.
And we can
No problem.
probably give you clearer direction at that
Yep.
time.
That sounds good to me. I
Thanks
can
so
do
much.
that. And that's all I have for this. Oh, thank you, doodle poll. So many notes. Michelle did help by sending out another doodle poll for scheduling the council retreat. So if you check your city email address, please respond to that, and know that it does go all the way past October into November, because I responded and didn't go through all the dates, so it's easy to do. Keep clicking that arrow over, you'll see there's plenty of dates to respond to. So if you could respond to that by July 14th, I think she has as the date. So
I'm available all of those dates, just so you're aware.
great.
We'll move on to, thanks, Dana. We'll move on to item 9C. I'm not going to read it. I think you've read the packet. Anyway, thanks for your patience waiting tonight. Nice to see you. Yes, it's not Phil.
I do have a staff report in there, Kim, but please feel free to share your requests, and I can answer any questions council has. They have my staff report.
Thanks, Kim.
I will keep it very brief, because it's exactly the same thing that I asked you to do the last time I was here. We have been able to add 6 homes in Trailview, Kim Morisaki, 1329 Bald Eagle Loop, Kalispell, Montana, Executive Director of Northwest Montana Community Land Trust. In the past 9 months, Northwest Montana Community Land Trust has been able to add 6 homes in the Trailview development off of Monaghan into the Community Land Trust inventory and sell them to people in the Whitefish workforce that were between 70% and 120% area median income. You allowed us to lift the deed restriction off of those homes and put the Community Land Trust ground lease on instead. Thank you very much for doing that. It's been a really great process for us. That development is now nearing the end of its new construction. There are 2 more opportunities to add homes and sell them to Community Land Trust owners. One of them is the new home at 307 Trailview, which you already approved us to lift the deed restriction on, but we hadn't actually, the last time I came to see you, we didn't actually have a buyer for it just yet. Now we do, and we'll be selling it to them at the end of this month. And then we have one home that has already been lived in for 2 years. The owner of that home would like to sell it. She's agreed to sell it back to us. We would like to ask you to lift your deed restriction on that, so we could add it to the community land trust. That's 717 Trailview. And that will allow us to bring up to $90,000 of home buyers assistance funds from the state to that project, and further lowering the price and allowing somebody who's at 75% area median income to buy the home. And so if you were willing to do that, my second part B of my request is, in the past, you have given us $30,000 per home for 3 of the homes that we've bought. And if you would be willing to do that again for 307 and 717 Trailview, that would assist me in layering all of the finance required.
Thanks, Kim. Any questions for Kim? Giuseppe?
More for either Dana or Kim. First of all, great job in every step of the way. Reading the staff report, I just needed confirmation. Am I understanding correctly that the funds required will come out of the affordable on the affordable funds, and we still have enough cash, which you say we do. And as an example, if someone for variances were to pay cash in lieu, that kind of cash in lieu will go refund this money that we are devolving to these kinds of projects. Am I correct?
Yes, that fund, not only does it collect the mill levy that we have, the 4 mills levied for affordable housing, and the funds that we generate from that, but it also would collect any cash in lieu of affordable housing that we have received through the Legacy Homes program that's voluntary now.
I would entertain a motion.
Well, so there are a number of items here. Can I move to approve all the items as presented in the staff report?
I'll take that as a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Davis. Further discussion? Kim, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Did you have a comment, Ben?
A comment. First of all, Kim, I'm sorry you're always at the end of our agenda. And it's always at the end of the long agenda, so I appreciate you sticking around.
Always educational.
If you keep doing this, we'll find an easier way for you.
Yeah.
But I do want to thank you because I continue to find this to be a very effective use of our affordable housing dollars, dollar for dollar with all these matching funds. I think it makes a tremendous amount of sense. I hope you continue to bring more, honestly.
I'm hoping to find another new development project to work on in partnership with somebody in Whitefish. And also, I think some of the homes that were sold 2019, 2020 may come back as an opportunity for us to buy, and that always provides an opportunity for us to leverage more state and federal dollars in there and buy down the price further. So I hope to come back and see you at least once every year. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please raise your hand, and that's unanimous. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Dana. We'll move on to item 9D, Resolution 24-24, approving an amendment to the interlocal agreement for fire protection service within the Whitefish Fire Service area. Dana, anything to add to this item?
Good evening, Council again. We're back here looking at the interlocal agreement and the proposed amendment to said agreement for the Whitefish Fire Service area. We met on this May 6th as a council with the fire service area to discuss the proposal, and you provided staff direction to make some changes and work with the board on those. So I'm just going to go over the changes since we reviewed the amendment last, or just over the big key points. So the amendment to the interlocal would provide that the fire service area will transfer a fire engine to the city by July 30th of 2025 at an estimated cost of $700,000. They've already gone out for bid for that. The term of the original agreement is extended for 10 years past the original expiration date of June 30th of 2026. So that would go to June 30th of 2036. Annual payments from the fire service area will increase annually at a rate of 4%. Language has been added to address that the compensation by the fire service area is not meeting the cost of service provided by the city. We added a section to one of the whereases where we had, quote, the fire service area is diligently working to find ways to increase the compensation provided to Whitefish and relieve city taxpayers from paying for any costs of service provided to the fire service area. And then we have a trigger point added under the annual compensation, where starting in fiscal year 2027, which would be the first year of a new agreement if we didn't have this amendment, if the fire service area increases its assessment or property tax levy, resulting in the payment to Whitefish equaling less than 70% of tax revenue budgeted by the fire service area, both parties will negotiate and mutually agree upon increases to the compensation for services as detailed within that section. And then it provides, if there's no agreement, we can provide notice, a 12-month notice of no longer providing service. So it provides a specific trigger point for when we need to renegotiate. Currently, they are providing 72% of their revenue to us. So 70 just seemed like an easier, even number. We could change it to 72 if you wanted. The Fire Service Area Board did ask for a minor language change to require notice to the executive director should any training held by the city result in any damage or suspected damage. And so we're working on that communication. Overall, over the term of the amended agreement, the city would collect almost $6.3 million. We would also receive a fire engine at the expense of the fire service area of an estimated $700,000, which for us would be valued at over $900,000 given our financing costs that we would have to incur. And then, as I mentioned, they do have a public hearing coming up on July 11th, where they are seeking a 25% increase in their assessments from $144 to $180 per structure. I know their intent is to ask for more increases after this each year, or ask for increases in the future to continue to increase their rates. So with that, staff respectfully recommends the City Council approve Resolution 24-25, according to Michelle. A resolution approving an amendment to the interlocal agreement for fire protection services with the fire service area.
Thank you, Dina. I'll turn it back to the council for a motion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 24-25, a resolution approving an amendment to the interlocal agreement for fire protection services within the Whitefish Fire Service area, as in page 262 of the packet.
Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councilor Quinnell. Further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that motion does carry unanimously. We do have two letters enclosed in the packet. I don't really feel that the first letter is within any of our jurisdiction. It's referencing the Safeway parking lot. Traffic signals at Second and Baker, which are not our responsibility. They're with DOT. And I didn't really appreciate the tone of the Skiles comment. So having a business on Skiles, I don't really see that those comments warrant any attention at this point. Other comments? Not seeing any. Anything additional to report on from staff before we go to council comments? Giuseppe, how about you start tonight?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. Number one, happy 4th of July. I get to speak first, so I get to say first. Hopefully we burn the barge down and then we'll figure out the pollution in the lake. I'm teasing Andy. Personally, not as a city council member, but as a citizen and a pilot, I'm thankful that this council considered the pilot, the aviation community, the backcountry aviation community as important to this community. So thank you.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks, Giuseppe. Steve?
Nothing from me.
Thanks, Steve. Frank?
Nothing from me this evening. Thanks.
Thank you, Frank. Ben?
One thing. Let's all be careful out there on the 4th.
Yes.
Noise is a problem, not to mention the possibility of fires, notwithstanding all the great rain we've had. But let's be careful.
I'll be far north. Ben?
I just wanted to express my disappointment in the county commissioner's decision not to support the additional transportation routes that were proposed here recently. I just feel like that was a very reasonable incremental step that had support from a lot of the communities here in the Flathead. Very, very sad to see that not move forward. So anyway, I hope whoever may hear this that we keep trying. I know this is a difficult year for property tax increases. So, but I do feel like that was a very reasonable proposal we saw here, and one of the best ways we'll ever have to move public transportation forward in the valley. And I do think that would be tremendously beneficial to the citizens of Whitefish. So anyway, if there's any way to continue to support this proposal going forward, try again next year or whatever it is, I hope we would do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Rebecca?
I have some things. One is could we have a point person for intra-agency permitting? Because I think it's a little bit of a gap that we have in our staffing. So that would be like the footbridge got delayed because of the floodplain permit, and this bridge thing got delayed because of BNS. So I just wondered if there's someone that could take on the lead for all the intra-agency permitting, so that we don't have delays in getting projects done. Okay, I'm just planting a seed. Not, you're all tired, I know, but I just think it might help to have someone do that. And then I've identified 6 houses or dwelling places or commercial things that are blighted and abandoned. And I've talked to staff a little bit about this, but I was wondering if we could have a work session on, maybe it doesn't need to be a work session, but how we condemn them or how we make them safe for humans and animals, because one of them bears got into down by the city beach, and there's roofs falling in and there's mold, and they're just, I think they're actually now dangerous to the community, and we have 6 of them that I know of, and we don't seem to have a mechanism in place to deal with them. I know I've talked to Bridger and Dana and Angie a little bit about this. Then also crime seems to be up with stealing things. Is that right, Bridger? People are posting things online about lock your doors and lock up your bikes. And is it worse than usual?
I'm not seeing a uptick in reports in that fashion. I would say if that is happening, make sure you report it to your police department. But summertime, this time of year when population goes up and we have more of a transient population, most definitely things do, but I wouldn't say it's any different than last year.
Okay, just lock things up, I guess. And then the Supreme Court decision on Chevron is pretty significant. I don't know, Ange, if you are following that, but it basically kind of eliminates administrative oversight from the government and refers it to the courts. And so that's one major decision that I think might have a big impact on how we govern. And also there's another project 2025 is being proposed. And I just wonder how we anticipate and prepare for these things if we don't have a lobbyist working with us. But I think there are going to be a pretty profound change in how we deal with our government functioning. So I just wondered if we could look into things like that ahead of time so we're not blindsided when they come down.
So we will be putting out, I'll be coming to council to put out an RFP. Well, I'll probably put it out. It'll be in the budget in August after the budget's adopted for this next legislative session. But our charter is pretty specific about when we should get involved in federal matters and federal legislation. I think that's the hard part, is there is a gray line of where to walk, you know, where you can go. The council has directed us to, or has written comments regarding climate related bills, but you know, you could get into really a lot of different bills at the legislature that impact us, but essentially our charter says you shouldn't be involved in federal legislation that doesn't treat Whitefish any different than other cities.
Yeah, it's more kind of being proactive, I guess, but I'll research it and talk to you guys.
Okay.
That's all. Happy 4th of July and celebrate your freedom.
Thanks, Rebecca. Andy?
I'm just thinking back to multiple councils ago when Pam Barberis first brought up perchlorate fireworks at City Beach, and perchlorates, which we know are a nasty carcinogen, and we're shooting them in over the water where our children swim and everyone else in the community swims. Just to let everybody know, I mean, Whitefish Lake Institute and the Chamber has been working on that, but unfortunately perchlorates are super expensive and not very readily available. So I think we'd set a target for a number, and I don't think we've gotten to that yet, have we, Angie?
We have not, no.
Yeah.
I think 2025 is our deadline, and I
Yeah.
know, like, right after we passed that legislation, I think it was during COVID or, like, right immediately after COVID, but they were just nowhere to be found.
Yeah,
So,
so-
but we do have it written in our ordinance, and we're still working towards it.
Yeah, because I do get questions by people, and I just want to let everybody know that we are working on it, and it's not our fault. We're doing the best we can in that. I can think of, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago, we were all sitting up here right about now in an emergency session prohibiting fireworks because it was so bone dry, so I'm super glad that we've got water that's been coming out of the sky plentifully. And in closing, more importantly, I just want to wish the mayor a very happy birthday today. Don't want to embarrass him, but it is his birthday. So, happy birthday, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. 50 fun today. On that note, happy 4th, everyone. We are adjourned. Thanks.